Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Everyone's here tonight, so I think first thing on the thing, we want to approve the minutes of March 29th. I think Sandy sent them all to us. So it's, everyone has had a chance to review them. I think they're long. But I didn't have anything. I don't know if anyone else had. So maybe I'll look for a motion to approve the minutes as sent to us.
So moved for the March 29th meeting.
Can we have a motion to approve the minutes the second?
I'll second.
Sonia?
It does not matter, I think that was
Okay. So, we got a motion to approve them in a second, so all in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. And then we have the minutes of the April 19th meeting, the special meeting, I guess with the two public hearings. Everyone received those, everyone reviewed them. Is there any changes or modifications to those?
The only thing I'm still gonna do is add the statement of benefits. We're gonna add it to the end.
We'll add it to this tonight's meeting.
No, I'm gonna add them to this meeting,
Oh, okay, so
so they'll be taped to the back of these.
Oh, okay. So what we discussed, this is what we just discussed earlier.
Right, because you didn't change what we discussed.
Okay. So what, we just went over, if there was a limit, I think Fisher Farms had a maximum $200,000 in personal property with, I think, plus 15,000. And
For
Sanders,
information technology.
Yeah.
We had it penciled in, but I didn't have it.
right. And then Sanders had a maximum amount of, was it?
473,529.
So just so we know that that's all part of it, that'll be part of it.
So we'll add those to it.
Okay. So hearing that,
I'll make the motion.
we have a motion to approve the minutes of April 19th, and Doug seconded, so all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That motion carries and it's approved.
There's so much.
Next on the agenda here, we have to create a capital projects fund,
Nothing's on our own page with me.
and I don't know if Sandy, if that fund was given a resolution number.
We have to establish a new fund we've called it the Corrections Construction Fund, which this is money that comes from the lease when the building corporation leases that building from us. So we've advertised for $9.6 million, and then that's gonna be put into that fund, and then we'll use it for construction costs. So it's gonna be, fund number 141-5801.
Could you repeat that, 141?
It's local fund 141, and the state number is 4801, which is a capital projects number. You guys really, that's just their local number here.
So I think so everybody understands that that's, we had to sell, the county has to sell the property to the building corporation, and that's the amount of what they're paying us for that, 9 points.
That was the average of the two appraisals we had done on the building.
Right, I'm sorry, yeah. So that was the average. So when we start doing the construction of the project, we use that money first, right?
Mhm.
Sandy, yes, so we use that money up first before we use any bond issue money. So this is, how would we just gotta approve this resolution or this?
Well, the resolution sets up the fund.
Okay.
And then the next part of it will be the additional appropriation to appropriate the money once it gets in the fund. So it's a two-part thing here.
So I guess, first of all, we wanna establish establish a correction construction fund. So
Mhm.
is any questions or discussions on that?
What's the resolution number?
It will be resolution 2021-16. Greg and I just called it this week. We were advised to make a name that if we do this another project for the courthouse, then we'll have another, to keep them all separate. So that's why we just call it the corrections, because it's for jail and community corrections.
I have a question. I keep thinking 2021-16 was the official fund stuff, like the abatement resolutions.
I think you're right. I have that in front of me. So it'll be 17, then be 18, because I have 16 and 17 right here. So it'll be 18, sorry.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on this? I know it's a little bit complicated, but, I think, even though I have gone through this a little bit, we understand a little bit more, but, we did, like Sandy said, we got 2 appraisals, but the attorney got 2 appraisals from, and then we took the average. One of them was 10 million something, and the other was, I can't remember exactly, but 8 million something. And, so then, that's how they arrived at that. And, again, that money is going to be spent on the construction prior to spending the bond.
So, help me understand where the money is coming from.
The bonds.
Bonds. Okay. The money that's going, that we're putting in this fund.
Right, it's going to come from the bond sale, but it's
Allocated for this year, for the averages of the value.
We aren't bonding, the building corporation is doing the bonding, they're buying the bonds. So the building corporation is getting the money, and it's gonna go to the trustee. They're gonna pay us for that building, right? Because they have to lease, they're leasing it from us, okay? So we get that money and we spend that first, and then the trustee starts paying. He probably knows way more about this than
That
I
makes
do.
a lot more, it makes more sense now that you went
Just
through
did 2
that
of them in the
process.
last 3.
Does that make sense what I said?
So I guess if we,
What's the dollar amount on that? 9 points.
9,600,000 is what they came up with for that building. But like I said, the resolution is just to create the fund so that we can use it and spend it.
okay, hearing that, if there's no other discussion, I want you to understand it. I'll look for a motion to approve setting up this, establishing this correction and construction fund.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Craig made the motion, we have a motion, we have a second.
I'll second.
Charlene seconded, so all in favor of the motion, say aye. Anyone opposed, say nay. So unanimous. Let's set this up. So Sandy, do we want to appropriate the funds now or do them later?
You can do it now.
Fine. I'll go ahead and maybe do
Yeah,
that.
just get this fund done.
So we would transfer,
Well, the trustee's gonna give us the money, then I'll put it in that fund.
Okay.
We can't spend it unless you say I can appropriate it. So now we're gonna appropriate the $9.6 million.
so does everyone understand that? Okay. So may I have a motion to approve setting up that, or to transfer that fund?
No, make that motion, right?
Okay, Becky made the motion, may I have a second? Doug seconded, so all in favor say aye. Anyone opposed? And it carries unanimously. Okay,
I know that it's an A person.
pardon me.
I know that it's an A person.
So just the opposite of the first one.
Yeah.
Okay, if that's all, we'll move on to Bill, Holton on the bus cameras. You
Yeah.
give us a little update.
That's what I'm here for. First of all, thank you for your support and having me here this evening. I think I was here about a year ago, maybe longer because COVID might have kept me. Sure. So I want to thank you for agreeing to support our cameras. I thought I'd give you a little update on what what's been going on last year. Last summer, and I'm representing all 4 school corporations while I'm here. Between the 4 of us, we installed 14 cameras last summer on, of course, 14 buses. We captured 50 occurrences thus far in our school year. And Anthony will have some data on how many have been prosecuted and that. He mentioned to me 2 class misdemeanors were filed and 30 infractions. And like I said, we've captured 50. It's been quite a learning curve for us. It's been really good data for us to have for training our bus drivers, because sometimes we can't prosecute because of what we're capturing on film, whether it's the bus driver, not giving an adequate time for a vehicle to stop or something like that. So we're actually going to use some of our camera footage this summer in our bus driver meetings to do some proper training. So that's been good as well. Our plan for this summer, like I said, through your help, is to more than double our cameras on buses. We have 14. We should be equipping 20 or more this summer. There's 88 school buses in the county. Our goal of having them all equipped in 4 to 5 years is right on target. So I want to thank you again for your support. And if you got any questions for me or for Anthony, we're both here to take any questions.
Thank you for coming in and sharing. I want to find.
Well, I thank you on behalf of our students, because it's definitely a safety issue. And luckily we were able to run our buses all year and have school. Last year this time we weren't running any buses, so we're thankful for that as well.
One thing I saw was the news report, I think it was on Channel 14. They came up to Du Bois County and did a ride along with one of the deputies, and that was pretty cool to see them implementing, just doing a news report on how that's going.
And having resource officers in our schools also makes for a quick turnaround of those, as far as taking the footage and utilizing the footage to. Are you asking the process? Yeah. Our bus drivers, when they get an infraction, they basically push a button which kind of sets a time of when it happens, so that when we go back and play the footage, we can go to that time. And we're capturing pictures of the front of the vehicle, the driver, and the license plate. So that part's working very well as far as being able to identify the perpetrator. And so it's we had some difficulties in the beginning, cameras that didn't work, cameras that weren't capturing what we want, but we actually changed companies early in the school year, and now we've got a real reputable company that's doing a knockout job for us that we're gonna have them install our cameras this year. So, like I said, it's been a learning process, but it's.
So I thought there's a lot to be learned. I think there's drivers as well, but also that maybe some stops aren't safe stops.
Yes.
Maybe the different area. I'm a bus driver part-time, so and I've learned that when I drive different routes, and some of them are just a little bit sketchy, if you want to call it that. I mean, there's not as safe as others. There's different ways to look at things. So
Yeah, I think it's great that they're not using this information to also, use it for more training. So, improve the process, and like you said, define areas that may need to be tweaked or something.
It's helped in many ways.
right.
What's the reason those people do it around the bus? I mean, is it?
Probably distraction, being in a hurry, some of those type things. I think some of it, I don't know that people know, when the yellow comes on, you don't have to stop, but when the red comes on, you have to. So you got the people who are going through the yellow, and then we bring out the red, well, they continue on, so. Distracted driving, careless, being in a hurry, not paying attention, all those things add up to that. Speed sometimes, especially on some of our highways, and places where cars are going a little bit faster than, maybe on a city street. There's all kinds of reasons.
So when you have that, that happens, and then the bus goes back to school or whatever, turns that in, so when's the driver notified?
The driver,
When's he notified, that he violated the law?
that's a great question. How quick is that, do you think?
Well, I mean, it depends on how quickly the resource officer gets that information. If they write them a ticket, they send those out probably really quick, within a day or so of their investigation. They'll get that in the mail. If it's a misdemeanor, that usually comes to my office first. We'll review it, and we'll summons it into court. So that may take, a couple weeks up to a month after the incident. But infractions really quick, misdemeanor is probably a month at most, longest.
What's the difference?
That extra step of getting it to us and us reviewing it and getting the paperwork filed and summons date with the court.
Well, I was just curious, what's an infraction
All
versus
the
a
difference between the
misdemeanor?
misdemeanor, the infraction is just the operation of the vehicles, all you have to show, and that's basically officer discretion. That's something we're working on with officers to kind of train them and show them the difference. To get to the misdemeanor, there has to be shown a recklessness on the part of the operator. So, as Bill pointed out, we only filed 2 misdemeanors in 2020, along with 30 infractions. And that was just for the year 2020, so I didn't take the spring semester into account here yet, but it's something we're working with the officers. If they believe it's to the point of recklessness to where we can prove that, then we're looking to file more misdemeanors where we can.
So it definitely identifies the driver.
Correct.
How has the camera pictures been on your behalf? I mean, is it?
We haven't had a case where we've had to go to trial, so I don't know if any of my prosecutors have dove into it too deep.
They don't have to use the camera
Yeah, most
footage.
of them have, admitted their responsibility, paid the ticket, or got resolved that way, so.
I think it'll be a while before we really see word getting out that we have them, and that causes, a positive reaction, and we hope sooner the better. That's why we want to try to get as many equipped as we can. But, we've had, like I said, 50 occurrences that we've turned in, and that's through the 4 school corporations, so. They don't all end up in an infraction or a misdemeanor, but, they do end up in the driver being informed that they did something wrong, and.
Word of mouth from that.
Yeah.
The takeoff.
So any other
Anyway.
questions for Bill? Thanks.
Thanks again.
Thanks, Bill.
Appreciate it, appreciate the support, and allowing me to come in and talk to you. Thank you.
Good seeing you.
All right, have a good evening.
Next on the agenda is Purdue Extension Educator Introduction.
Yes, hello. Hi. I am Chelsea Brewer, and I sincerely want to apologize for last month. Lisa was under quarantine, and I felt suddenly stricken with this wonderful stomach bug that was going around, so I was like, they do not want me in there. I'm going to executively decide. Yeah. Would you like a copy too? Thank you. Yeah, so I apologize. It was not my kind of shower at that point in time.
You can apologize.
So your title is?
I am the Health and Human Sciences Educator with Purdue Extension. If you knew Jan Dugan, I've taken her place as she retired in 2019. I have a couple of things here for you today. The first one is a Health and Human Sciences brochure with my business card in case you want to contact me or you need a little refresher about what Health and Human Sciences does through Purdue Extension. We teach anything that has to do with food, family, money, or health to any age group. So it's really wide encompassing. If I don't have a program written, I do have a master's in public health and I'm qualified to write a program for you. So if you come to me with something really bizarre, like, I really want to know about rutabaga. Can you teach me more about rutabaga? And yes, I gladly will. And I will go and do all the research and talk to my colleagues up at Purdue University and we will teach you all about rutabaga. So that is a little bit about what Health and Human Sciences is. I also stuck a pamphlet in there about Purdue Fast Start. If you've not heard about this, this is something really great that Purdue is doing where high school kids can take online classes for free and test out of college programs for free. If they do if they pass 5 of their tests, that's like a semester at Purdue, they are guaranteed admittance into Purdue. If they do 10, it's a whole year for free. So really amazing. We are getting the first, the seniors last year were doing this. They're now at Purdue. They're really acclimating well. We're getting some good data from this. So if you know any high schoolers, pass along that information to them. And then the last thing here is our 2020 impact report. Just some gentle reading for your nighttime bedside table there. It's all the great things that we've done through all of the program areas of Purdue Extension. So it not only covers Health and Human Sciences, but there are 4-H stories in there, Ag and Natural Resources, and our Nutrition Education program, which focuses on SNAP Ed populations. So anybody who is low income, low resource, we have a program specifically targeting getting more resources to that population. So you can take a gander, see what you like there. A little bit about myself. I mentioned I do have a master's in public health. I was trained in health and disease at Purdue University, so kind of the cellular processes there, and I decided to take that into an education route and talk to people about what causes chronic diseases and how we can make lifestyle changes to better ourselves and our community. So after that, I worked for Memorial Hospital for a number of years as their health educator. Worked in a lot of the workforces around here. I was even at Greater Jasper Schools. I don't know if you remember that. So I was a wellness coordinator for many of the businesses locally. I took a few years off to start a family. Then in 2019, I started working for Purdue Extension up in Greene County. And then in 2020, I transferred down to Du Bois County. I'm a Du Bois County native, lived here the whole time, except for when I went to Purdue. And I'm happy to be back. Okay. Very appreciative of your time today. Any questions for me?
How's it going so far?
It's going really well. I love it. So it's nice to be back in the community that I want to raise my family and be making a positive impact here. So I enjoy it a lot. And my passion project is teaching young kids about their emotions through yoga and mindfulness. So that's my little side hobby. I have a certification in adult and children's yoga, so I enjoy that. Going to play with preschoolers and teaching them that big emotions are okay. It's all right to feel, it's okay to cry. So we're gonna go through it. So very relevant right now.
So I know, so Jan retired in 2019?
She did.
Okay, I lost track of this whole time. So how long have you been?
It's November 2020 is when I started. We had a hiring freeze over last year, so yeah, the interview process actually started in January 2020 and it took till November because we had to pause for several months, but yeah, officially transferred in November.
Nice. Good.
So what do you recommend? They're slashing these home ec courses at high schools and stuff, and some of these kids have no concept of something that's pretty important. What do you guys recommend for the youth to do for
4-H. 4-H, yes. We actually have a series in 4-H called Adulting 101. It teaches things like microwave cooking, how to buy a car, that there are things to consider besides like the free Mustang that's super fast. You have to consider, you know, gas and tires and insurance and maintenance costs and all sorts of things like that. We also have a babysitter 101 class and at-home helpers. Those are both for kind of your younger middle school age kids. It teaches them how to stay at home during the summer by themselves and how to take care of themselves, so.
You have summer programs for this stuff.
Let's think. The at-home helpers, that was a spring break one that we did to kind of prep for the summer. The babysitters was in the fall, like over the winter break. Yeah, so we try and have school breaks for them.
Okay.
Yeah, but 4-H has really been where we're trying to bridge that gap. Yeah, thanks, great question. Any other questions?
You get a lot of volunteers to teach classes like that, or?
Nope.
Okay.
That's usually either Lisa or myself that teaches like that. Yeah, our volunteers mainly work with the actual clubs, the 4-H clubs, and teach more about like the 4-H projects and going to the fair and things like that. These classes, we call them spark clubs sometimes. Those are more the skill building classes. We're everywhere.
Does it matter about this program so long, or is that trying to drop one fan?
So I am recently trained in that, and we're hoping to get it restarted. Yeah. Training has been something that's been a little difficult to come by, just can't get large crowds together.
Sure.
But slowly, we're coming back. Yeah. Very slowly, yes.
Put your hands full.
We do, oh, we love it. You know, we're type A people, we like to be busy. Very much. Thank you so much, I appreciate your time.
Next on the agenda here is Tammy.
I've got a quote here for y'all, so you can see what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll give it to you.
Great, how much stuff?
There you go. I'm not gonna say it on for myself. Okay, so I'm here today to ask for, some funding to upgrade our PA system that we currently have in the courthouse in the annex. We had our tornado drill on March the 16th, and of course, that's the one time a year that we always test our PA system for sure. And we found that we're lacking in notification for some of our staff. In this building, we would like to add a PA out in this hallway here. Because our HR director had someone in his office and was unable to hear anything that came through. So I feel like that's important, we need to have that. This door was closed, I think there's an actual speaker in here, but this door was closed, so he did not hear anything. Yeah, so, and then across the street in probation, in part of their office area, they need to have one there because with doors closed and things, they can't hear it in the back part, in the newer part, the reconstructed part there. So, those are the two additional speakers that I would like to get. And then down in the basement, we already have a speaker down there, but it is not turned up loud enough. Everyone in the courthouse evacuates down to the basement and they're all congregating downstairs. And it came through, but you could just barely hear it. So if there's conversation going, you're not gonna know what's being said on that speaker. So if it's something bigger than a tornado or something, you're gonna wanna hear what's coming through and so that he can actually turn the volume up. He checked that speaker and it can go up a little bit higher. So there's a cost for that. So that came from the tornado drill. The other request that I have on the second page is, and I highlighted the one that we are interested in. This falls under the security committee that I sit on, along with the judge and the sheriff and a bunch of members from both the courthouse and annex ending. We have panicked or duress buttons, and when we push those buttons, it depends on which building you're in. If you're in this building, it will only announce in this building that there's a situation in the basement. If you're across the street, same thing. If that building will hear there's a situation in the auditor's office or whatnot. But the security committee has had in-depth conversation, and in the event of a big deal, we would want both buildings to know exactly what was going on, because we're in and out of each other's buildings continuously. So with that being said, that's what proposal 5 is to add that to the system, to where we would be able to do that. So if I push my panic button in my office, it's gonna sound across the street, and everybody over there is gonna know that there is something going on over here and that they need to not go back and forth to the buildings. Now, it kind of falls under active shooter or any kind of a hostile situation. You wanna try to keep as many people away as possible. So if we don't know what's going on, we're gonna send people over there or whatnot, and we can at least, if we're in this building, we can at least help monitor the people from going in, or however we need to do it. And actually, we are currently working on rewriting and doing some upgrades on our policies and procedures for those exact moments. And we're working directly with the sheriff's department and setting up a new drill that we'll be able to start. We're gonna do it annually, which I've been requesting for a long, long time, so I'm pretty excited. But this is really something I feel, and the security committee feels very strong about, that we need to have put in place. So with that being said, the total I'm asking for is $4,445, that we can go ahead and request Astro Security to fix those items for us. And the commissioners, I did go to them first before I came to you guys, and they gave me approval to come to you and ask for this money.
So they're the ones that accepted the highlighted yellow.
Well, yeah, that's what we were discussed at the meeting, and nothing's been signed, waiting on your decision tonight.
Okay, is there any questions or information that you guys think additional for Tammy?
So Tammy, the one that is not accepted, what
I
is
think-
the difference between?
Well, I think it was a misunderstanding. He had originally had sent this in, and that is not what we were asking for, and I think he just misunderstood what I was asking, so Scott called him back and explained exactly how we wanted it, and instead of removing that proposal, he just added a proposal 5.
Any other questions of Tammy? So, she's asking for $445 for additional appropriations for the PA system and then $4 in the annex, so.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Doug's making a motion to approve that appropriation. And it's second,
I'll second.
Sonia second. And, so all in favor, say aye.
Okay.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries. We will approve $445.
$4,445.
$445.
All right, thank you guys very much.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Dave.
When I get home for tomorrow, I'll
Sean?
All right, so Sandy gave me 5 minutes, so I'll make it quick.
You asked for 5 minutes.
So basically, this is going to be a report for this is 2020.
Yeah.
So since we're running 10 minutes late.
I'll make it even
You were
quicker.
5 minutes.
That's why it says times are estimated.
2.5. So just to go through it real quick, it might look a little bit different this year for a couple reasons. COVID, we tried to condense it to what we thought was absolutely necessary. And also, we have to do an annual report with the state every year. So I kind of mirrored this to look like that, so I don't have to do 2 different reports. So hopefully in the future, this is what's gonna look like from now on. So just to go through it real quick, the first kind of 2 pages, Obviously, the cover page, the next page is just the hierarchy chart, like who's over who. And then the next one would be the Board of Health, who's on our Board of Health right now, and then kind of our staff list. The next 2 pages will give you a breakdown of our funds, the health fund, and then the next one is the report card of all the different funds that we have, kind of incomes, the disbursements, and the balances on that. If anybody has any questions on the way through, just feel free to ask me on the way through. But the next one would be the environmental. So if it's in the box at the top that has the fees, that's actually something that we charge for. So that has a money value with it. The other listings below that is, say we do a septic inspection or we do a complaint. Those are all listed by numbers of how many we do each year roughly. And then the next one would be the vital records. So that would be your birth and death certificates and the other charges there associated with those. And then the births and the deaths are listed underneath there. And the immunizations, the first immunizations is just a breakdown of like overall shots. That's including self-aids, Vaxcare, all the different patients that we see. It's kind of broken down by children and adults, and it's got the flu shots in there as well. And then the next immunization one, the first breakdown of fees there is our self-pay, so that's different. We have to basically collect that money up front, and they bill their insurance themselves because Vaxcare does not allow us to bill those few individuals on there. And then the other chart underneath that would be what we get reimbursed through Vaxcare. That's how we provide our vaccine. Is this company purchase it, and then they do the billing for us. So then they give us a reimbursement for the vaccines that we give. And then underneath that would be the public health nursing visits. So we have about 2.5 individuals that go out and do nursing visits, whether they do med setups, blood draws, those types of educational things. So those are listed there. And then the last sheet will have just a very quick summary of preparedness. So this year preparedness was basically COVID-19 because we didn't have any deliverables due to get our grant other than to do an EOP, and that's due this June. So it's a quick preparedness report, and then anything underneath that is just kind of other miscellaneous incomes that we have. And that's basically it in a nutshell. It's a lot to digest, I know. You can go home and fall asleep on it. If you have any questions, just feel free to reach out to me and answer any questions. I'll be happy to do that.
So compared to years past, I mean, obviously this is a crazy year, but you see any issues that were without COVID?
Overall, our revenue is down because we were shut down for basically 2 months. We didn't collect birth and death certificates, we didn't collect immunization fees, and a lot of parents are still, they're starting to come back now, but there's a lot of parents behind on, their child immunization, so we're trying to catch those up with school clinics. So we're trying to get back in the swing of things, but that 2 months off definitely is going to hurt our bottom line.
Right.
So.
Hopefully temporary.
Yeah, hopefully. But if we ever start getting reimbursed for the amount of COVID shots we receive, then we'll start getting some revenue there. But I've literally asked 6 or 7 times when it's coming, and they just keep giving me the runaround. So we're at the state's mercy on that one because they're the ones doing the billing for us.
Has the board been helpful for you this year? See if you do some things?
Yeah, I mean, they're always willing to help, and yeah, we actually just met last Monday, so good meeting. Yeah. Anything else?
Anyone else got any questions for Sean? Otherwise, we thank you, Sean, for
All right.
bringing it in.
Appreciate it.
When's the next COVID shot gonna be out?
As far as a weekend,
Yeah,
we're probably through, I would say, all of those. I don't know if there's enough of the demand to have 1,000 or 200 or 1,200 clinic in the weekend. I think we're gonna maybe try to start doing some possible afternoon or evening drive-throughs because they just reinstated Johnson & Johnson Monday, and we have a few doses. We never did get our shipment, well, we were supposed to have the 1,200. So we're gonna try to use those few doses and see what the demand is. But our schedule, starting May 5th, pretty well falls off till second doses. So I'm thinking we're through most of the demand. I don't wanna set up a 1,200 shot clinic and only get a couple hundred people there and waste all that money. So we'll kind of gauge the demand or the interest in the next week or two and see what happens. But you know, with summertime coming around, everybody getting busy schedules, it's hard to fill 40 or 60 people on a weekend. It's finding harder and harder just to get them there in the week time. So I'm hoping we have most of it behind us that actually want it, and then we'll continue those people at the health department that you know, want it in the future. So people may change their mind or decide to get it.
So how many people, so I think 900 a week, or is that falling down?
Right now, we're still doing 900 a week.
Really? Oh, good.
Yeah, approximately 900 a week. We've got some homebound folks that we go out to see. There's a homebound Hoosier program that the state started, and we're taking care of that as well. So our home health nurses are going out to see those people, but you know, those are few and far between. Still takes a lot of our effort to send somebody out of the office to get it.
While I've got him here, later on in the agenda, we're talking about the Moderna grant.
So I contacted the state, and they act like it's gonna be similar to the previous grant. We can use it for anything COVID. I asked for that in writing, I haven't got it yet, so.
So we're just kind of waiting.
Yeah,
So when I presented, I just want, you know,
yeah, exactly. So it's like 12,000 and some odd change,
$7.
that we should be getting, very soon, but it has to be
But
spent,
we haven't heard anything yet.
has to be spent by June 30th, so.
Is that a state grant or a Moderna grant?
Well, it's similar to what we had received for the vaccine grant. I don't know if it's coming from federal, or I think it's probably federal that comes to the
I
state and
think
then
it's
they
federal.
count. So we may actually look at using some of that to add a heater in the above our drive-through, so we can start doing these in the fall as well. Because I'm afraid it's going to be booster shots, and to keep them flowing through and keep them out of the department. We wanted to add that to the fee of the first one, but it didn't make the budget, so that might be something I'd look at, this $12,000 to put in, and then we found out very quickly that it's a wind tunnel back there. So when we try to set our papers up and all our cards are blowing off, we may try to put up some type of little wind barrier if we can. We might use that money to try to offset that cost, and then the extra would just be for staffing and other supplies that we need.
Sean, thanks a lot.
Yeah. Hope it slows down for you. Well, it's good if you're out doing the clinics. Hopefully it's not working as many hours. But
Yeah, we're getting there.
appreciate your effort. I really do. We all-
That was longer than 5 minutes, so we.
Yeah, well, that's what we took questions. You won't have a Q&A next time.
Sounds good. Anything else?
That's all. Appreciate it.
All right, take care.
See ya, thank you.
I'm gonna need a copy.
Next on the agenda.
I was gonna give it to you, Commissioners.
That's fine. As long as I get one for the office.
Anthony Quinn.
Appreciate it.
Hi, yes, I do, thank you.
My name's Rob Haseman, and I'm the unit director for Adult Protective Services. I brought my staff today, Chris Chair. We are you've got 100% of the APS staff here today. We cover Davies, Martin, Green, Du Bois, Knox, and Pike counties. And the reason I'm here today is our prosecutor wanted us to reach out to all of the counties that we cover and ask that they donate something to the program. We were going to experience a shortfall of approximately $50,000 for this next year, which was gonna be a major cut to or a major blow to our budget. So I've reached out to all the counties, and I'm going to speak to anybody who'll listen. Full disclosure, I found out Friday that the state is going to make up that shortfall, which, since I've been in APS since 2009, I've never seen that happen. So that's the good news. The bad news is, the disclaimer on that is it's only gonna be for this year. We actually, last year, we were gonna experience the same shortfall because Davies County is the hub county, and they have been subsidizing our budget since I've been there, and actually before that. The state just does not give us, it actually doesn't give the whole program enough money to operate effectively. 3 people to cover 6 counties is really a drop in the bucket for endangered adults. And I can, if you guys want, I'm more than willing to explain what an endangered adult is and go through some of the legal parts, or if you want to read it on your own. But essentially, we get reports of adult endangerment. We take in the report, we investigate it, and then take any number of actions to help that person, or in extreme cases, prosecute that person. The adult system is essentially, it's anyone 18 years of age or older that's incapable by virtually any mental or physical reason from taking care of themselves, and is a victim of battery, neglect, or exploitation. And that includes self-neglect. So if you want to show orders, it's self-neglect typically. So having said that, you want to turn to page 2. I was asked to kind of put together some numbers for DuBois County specifically. I went back to clear back when I started. So, you know, these numbers are from May 2009 to April 23rd, 2021. We've had approximately 1,297 cases, about the same number of victims. Typically, it's about 1 case or call for service every 3 days. You can kind of look through the victim profiles there, but for the most part, it's going to be your elderly. And then with your intellectual disabilities beyond that, and then your mentally ill people. Typically, DuBois County, for our total numbers, generally run about 3rd, 4th, 6th. And really the reason for that, you guys have a lot more services down here than some of the other counties. Some of the other counties we service send people here because of your hospital and things like that. There's a list of some agencies we work with there. Jasper Memorial extensively. I doubt that there's, and I'm sure they would attest to this too, I doubt that there's usually over a week that goes by we don't hear from Jasper Memorial. So I mean, that's how close we work in contact with them. In various other agencies. The APS budget, and I'll put some information on that. For the entire state, the APS budget is $5.7 million, which sounds like a lot, but it's really not. There's 86 staff, 17 units, and then we have 2 at the state office. All the other, last year and then this year both, all the units had a shortfall. Every single unit had some shortfall. And a big reason for that is recently, the counties that were contributing to mainly the HUD counties that were contributing to our program. And the auditor would have to explain this in more detail, but basically, now they can't take money out of the county budget for to directly support APS. So the county general, like the county general fund. So specifically for us, it was, to cover health insurance costs, salaries, things like that. That's where the shortfall really comes in, because we really don't have hardly any equipment, and one car that we lease, and then a very, very meager budget for supplies. The prosecutors that run the program never have received any pay for doing it, and I don't see that ever changing. Kind of at the bottom of page 2, I broke down in very simplified terms actually what our budget is. So if you go down the bottom of page 2, the 13A budget, you can see there what, our personnel, supplies, the emergency services, equipment repair, vehicle lease, and, what those numbers go out to. And then I gave you a brief explanation of why that is. I know a lot of times people have never heard of us. And the big reason for that is, since we deal with adults, everything that we do, every case, call for service, since it's dealing with an adult, there's privacy issues with that. And so if I was to work a case on someone, for me to release any information about that case, they would have to sign a release form, much like HIPAA. We go to the hospital and do a HIPAA form. It's much like that. So, there's very serious privacy issues. And the reason for that is if we work in a endangered adult case, we are privy to almost any kind of health information about someone that you can imagine. We actually are exempt from HIPAA if it's an APS investigation, which there's very, very few of. So we really typically handle very sensitive information, and especially with families. We get a call on someone's family, we're working with that family, and for obvious reasons, they don't want us blabbing to the news or social media what we're doing, and I totally agree with that. Basically, the plan was prior to Friday, we were going to ask, for roughly $10,000 from each county that we service. I don't need that much now. However, it's been a big however, on our emergency services budget, we have $6,371. That essentially that works out to $1,000 per county. And if I get someone, for instance, if I get someone that has no family and they're unable to make decisions, and they're out down here in the hospital, and they need a guardian, they need somebody that can make their decisions, financial, everything. I cannot file a guardianship petition. Now, I know that seems insane that APS can't do that, but essentially because that is in the guardianship statute, it's not in the APS statute. So I can buy them or pay for an attorney to do the guardianship, but I can't file it. I can testify in the hearing, but I can't file it. So a lot of our emergency services have been used for getting people guardians. And also we have done some things like fix people's furnace that didn't have any heat in the winter, and things like that. So my budget prior to last year for that was $18,000 and change. So we've had that cut 2/3. That's not going to go up any. So with having said that, because I could go on for about APS forever, I will answer any questions you have, or I can elaborate more on something if you would like.
What would you need to make the emergency services whole,
Well, if it went back to the way what it was originally, it'd be roughly $12,000.
So if you split that 6 ways, that would be a couple thousand.
Yeah, roughly.
If y'all didn't read the last paragraph yet, and you don't have like righteous anger or tears,
Yeah, that's why I told you to hold off on that, but anyway, that's okay. And the thing about this is I could name off, and I won't, but I could name it, and so could my staff. A lot of people that I'm sure if I threw their name out in this room, you would know who they are, guaranteed it. And you would be shocked that either the fact that they were a victim or a perpetrator. This is just one story among thousands that I've been in APS. So, like I say, I've worked directly or supervised in our system over 10,000 cases.
Are you concerned with, the baby boomers gonna be aging, so we can have more dementia cases, coming up here soon? I mean.
Oh, we already have. Yeah, we've had dementia cases already from that age group, along with, a lot of the folks, a lot of that generation that did a lot of LSD back in the day, things like that, and now they've got severe brain damage, and it becomes an issue of, traumatic brain injury. Who's gonna pay for that? Nursing home placements are not, some of them won't take people like that, so you've got a lot of issues coming up, and dementia seems to be on the rise somewhat. Now, I think it's because of the population's aging. That's my personal thoughts, but, yeah, we've got a tremendous need coming up for that.
So I don't have how such a shoestring budget for a program that's gonna be needed so much in the future. Have you guys talked to state legislators or?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. The Indiana Prosecuting Attorneys Council a few years ago embarked on essentially a lobbying effort at the state level to get our program funded adequately. Not add, just get the few people that we have, set up. Well, so the unit directors, all the investigators, we went to meetings, we went on and on. And when it finally came down to going to the governor's office, the state APS director went in there and said, we need this, along with NIPAC representatives. And basically the conversation went with, well, if there's a problem in APS, it must be your fault. And you could either resign today or we'll fire you today. So guess who doesn't want to go to the APS state office and, go into the governor's room? And, and unfortunately, some of the things we do gets into some politics, but we're such a small organization, and we can't really put out there, like the summary of this case. We can't put that out there, but if we could, I think it would help. I think it would help if they would quit doing the contract and, trying to we're county employees, we work for the state, we're funded by the state of Indiana, but we're not state employees. I mean, it just isn't bad. They really need to make us our own agency. But they don't want to do that because then it's growing state government. Even though it's only 85 people, no one would notice that. No one would. And, I've argued with them up there, to the point of, some of the other unit directors, especially the ones that got ready to retire, and they just don't want to listen to us. They appreciate what we do, but it's like everything. Who wants to throw money at this? And they don't.
How old is this agency? Because when I worked in Indy a zillion years ago, we had training on why to call APS and it was a big part of, as an apartment manager, to know how to handle things.
Basically, the program started back in the early 1980s. And the reason for it was, and it was a great idea, was essentially because law enforcement was going out on welfare checks.
Yeah.
Well, if you've got a self-neglect case, you're not going to arrest that person. You can't charge them with a crime. And And then on top of that, you've got a lot of social service type work in addition to, you know, what involving getting that person help, all this. And so they created APS to essentially assist law enforcement. That's what we originally were for. And we've kind of evolved into some other different things. I'd say on an average day, the three of us probably talk to half a dozen people that just call in and just have no idea. If, you know, what do I do to get a guardian? What's a POA? You know, on and on. And we do a lot of counseling, a lot of directing people just to the right resources. So we've kind of evolved more that way. We were supposed to go out with law enforcement. Law enforcement, we work in a criminal case, kind of take the social service aspect. And, you know, having been a former law enforcement myself, I can tell you that worked pretty well. But, you know, as the population and things have changed, the state level at APS has not kept up with really what the needs of the communities are. And so here we are. I mean, the fact that I have to come out and talk to people and ask for money is
Sad.
it's very sad.
Sad.
I'm trying to find the right word.
Yeah.
But it's sad. I do it because I believe in the program. I believe wholeheartedly in what we do. When we do have a win, it's usually huge, like the case I pointed out here. You know, what's that worth to a community when you take someone who's lived like an animal and now is being treated like a human being and is walking for the first time in 20 years? What's that worth? To me, I don't think you can put a price on it, but the price that you at least could put on it is you're not gonna have to worry about tens of thousands of dollars in shortfalls when we're gonna throw $90 million into a trail system. You know, I mean, it's, and don't get me wrong, I live right by some trails. They're great, and I certainly think that getting out of nature is wonderful. But when you have a trail that goes by somebody's house and, you know, they're in there starving to death or you can't heat their home, let's get out on the dang trail. You know, that's an issue with me personally, but, you know. So, like I said, you know, we're here, I don't want to throw any kind of dollar amount at you. I know it's probably not really, but I just feel I just can't say, please throw this X amount. Whatever you throw into our program will go for a good cause. That I will guarantee you. And since it's a donation, I can carry it over on the next budget. So if we don't spend some of it this year or even next year, I still can carry it over because it's a donation. It's not part of our contract.
So, just some questions.
Sure.
I like to get into the weeds with numbers.
Okay.
So, the total amount, the 250,761, is that what the state is actually gonna fund you at this year? You said they're gonna cover the shortfall?
But then it's gonna be like right at 247,000. It's not quite that much, but it's close.
And this 250,000 is each of these individual line items added up. The emergency services, you said, is already $12,000 short of what it should be.
Yeah.
So you add 12,000 to that, and then you're gonna fund it 3,000 short.
Yep.
So virtually, you know, to just make yourself whole, it's 15,000 total a year.
For the emergency services part, or
Well, just total. You said that they're gonna fund you at 247, which is 3,000 short,
okay,
but what's listed there.
yeah, correct. It gets confusing because we have an operational budget and we have an emergency services budget, and they're added together, but then yeah, they're separate. That makes sense.
So 15,000 would make you whole.
That would get me back up to where, essentially where I was before, you know, 2 years ago when, you know, when Davis County was subsidizing the whole amount at that time.
So this is,
And they subsidize us too with, you know, they give us office space and phones and all that stuff, which you know, we've argued at the state level, you know, they should reimburse the counties for that separately. But it's, you know, here's our contract and that's it. You know, if it's not in the contract, it's too bad. Yeah.
So are they subsidizing, you mentioned that they subsidized your program about 50,000 a year prior. And that has come to an end
Yes.
because of the, like, they're not subsidizing you, and it looks like it's because of the insurance.
Yeah, that's 99.9% of what happened. And that was, you know, when I started, they were, you know, of course, you know, we're talking 12 years ago now. You know, it was a vastly different figure than what we have today. You know, they didn't care to subsidize us. You know, back then it was like 5,000 to 10,000, I think. And, you know, obviously it's, as you all know, health insurance has went a little crazy. But that's part of, you know, that's part of our pay package.
So you're employed by Davies County?
Correct. We're employed by Davies County, but we're funded through the state. And as a business person, I can tell you it's the most inefficient thing I've ever seen in my life. Because the state's on, you know, they're on a calendar of, you know, July 1st to June 30th, and you've got the county's budget, it's the calendar year. So yeah, it gets real confusing real fast.
Okay, but I was gonna ask what your year is, so it's,
So we're getting ready to start in the new contract, state fiscal year, July 1st. Then that'll go to June 30th. The good news is we've, you know, for the first time in a long time, we actually got our contract and the amount that we were gonna get on a day besides being June 30. There's been years where I had to fill out a budget that I
It
didn't.
happens here, I understand that.
Yeah, she knows. So yeah, I mean, this year I gotta give them credit, they're way ahead of the game, really. But, you know, that's the amount we have to work with. And like I say, I'm glad that they got it out to us and we got that amount, but like I said, this doesn't, and you know, cost of living, inflation, all that, it's not built in there. You know, we're essentially operating on more or less the same budget we've operated on for, I don't know, 5 years, 4 or 5 years at least. So there's no raises going into this or any perks. Matter of fact, I'm probably gonna lose my lease on the vehicle next year. So we'll be back to driving rental cars, which was how it was when I started, which I gotta tell you, it's awkward, you know, when you go do a visit on somebody and then they see you in your car and then you're at Walmart and then they see you getting out of your car at Walmart and they're coming up, you know, what did you do about this? So it was nice, it's nice to have the APS car because it's not our own personal vehicle. But you know, that's probably a place we're gonna have to save some money in the next go around because my other expenses will likely go up.
That's if you don't get help from other counties.
Right.
If you do get help, then you can keep the.
That would help tremendously. I mean, that would help tremendously with it. And I'll just be very honest with you. I doubt the other counties. I have not got anything from any of the other counties. Let's put it that way. They agree with our cost. I've yet to go talk to anyone who hasn't said, well, I think you guys are a waste of time. They all agree with the mission, but everyone's tight. And you know, Martin County, they're broke. Knox is broke. Pike's broke. Green's not much better. I mean, it's, you know, we've got the poorest counties in our area for the state. And they're kind of bunched together. It's not a put down on the people. It's just the tax base and you know, all that. So it's hard to get money from the other counties because it's not that they don't want to contribute, they do. They just don't have anything to contribute. Very much. When I first started, we did this, and I got money from 2 counties, and it was enough to at least pay for training that year. That's the other thing, we have no money for training. We haven't had, APS hasn't had a training for, I don't know, a couple of years or so, at least, several. I put on some training. You know, a lot of our training is stuff we see on the news or that we read on the internet. But the state is supposed to have an annual training for APS that's paid for by the state. But the budget's been so tight at the state level for APS that they haven't had it. Which really hurts, because it's nice to get together with everybody, because everybody in the state does things differently. And it's just good to see. It's good to see we're a small group. It's good to see other people that have the same nightmares you do.
And solutions and try to find some.
Absolutely, definitely. Yeah, I've had some very productive, even if it's not really training, we're just talking. And then we started doing some Zoom calls and phone calls and things, which is just not the same. It's not the same as when we get together. It never will be.
Anthony, would you want to add anything that, bringing it back to our county, how are the services used just in our county? I know he's itemized in here and we're
Yeah, a lot of the services they do provide don't lead to us getting involved criminally. I think that's the important thing to remember. We file, occasionally criminal cases, and we've prosecuted an individual that neglected someone that ended up in that person's death. So we have sent people to prison for actions that they've been initially involved in. But the vast majority of services they provide are more social in nature than criminal. If they go to something and it is appear to be criminal, they'll get law enforcement involved quickly, and we'll follow up with those investigations and prosecute as needed. As Rob said, I don't understand the state dynamic of why they've over the years underfunded APS. I'm on IPAC's board now currently, and this is something that comes up with our organization a lot as far as that frustration. A lot of the hub prosecutors, including Mr. Murray, have expressed their frustrations with the lack of funding from the state. It is kind of an unusual situation that they are hired by that hub county as an employee, but then they're supposed to be funded by the state, yet the state isn't, in a lot of people's opinion, doing an adequate job of funding this program, which in my opinion is very valuable to Du Bois County. There are many citizens, and as mentioned, will be more that age and have other issues arise that will need these services that potentially would go undetected or untreated or cared for without APS. So it is valuable to the citizens of Du Bois County.
Well, thanks.
Yep.
So, I guess for funding purposes, I don't know how we would possibly fund it if your Rob's calling it a donation. It's a donation to him, but would it be a donation to us? Did we run into that?
I think it would be a donation to his program.
Would that have to be?
It would be kind of like when you give TRICAP or the veterans or anything else a donation. I'd have to look, but
Okay, I guess that's.
I did speak to Patty Ball, the auditor in Davies County, and she was kind of telling me that they just can't afford to do it all anymore.
And I was just thinking if that would have to go into the commissioner's budget, first, and then,
Well, I guess the question is, if you guys all won't fund it, there's no reason to go further. But if you guys think you may consensus to fund it, then we can go to the commissioners and ask them if they would. But ultimately, it's up to you.
But, and the other thing, your new year starts in June.
July.
July 1st, ends of June 30th. If we would get it into our budget for next year, then it could be paid out in January, it seems to me it would make more sense to, that we would try to get it funded. And, I'd like to get the commissioner's blessing on it first before we proceed, just like, like you said, anything else we do, if it's the library or, the museum or anything, it's kind of goes through their budget, I would see this as.
So that I'm clear, so you said it started in the eighties, sometime,
2008, 2009, you started?
I started in
Okay.
2000.
But I guess what I'm saying, so the county, Du Bois County, hasn't really funded,
Nothing,
anything, I mean,
nothing
we
I'm
haven't
aware
given money or anything in the last
Not that I'm aware of.
32.
My predecessor's only been one of the unit directors besides me, and I don't remember Terry ever saying that. In fairness, we didn't have to come and ask for the council and the county to contribute. I mean,
Because the state.
yeah, as it should be.
No, Davis County did it for all those years.
Davis County funded anything that was short?
Yeah, Davis County funded it, for all those years, so it wasn't, just whatever the shortfall was, they met it.
It's just, like I say, in the last several years is when it's really got to be the problem. It's, become an issue. And I've been lucky, some of the other APS units have had to convert to part-time staff, lay staff off, which is just, punch in the gut, because I feel like if it was my world, I would feel like at least in all the rural counties, there should at least be one of us. And to the prosecutor's credit, they have drawn a line in the sand and said, and all the head prosecutors have pretty much agreed, if the state's not going to fund this enough, well, we have to start letting people go, then we can't sign on a contract saying we're gonna provide these services in these counties if you're not gonna give us the tools to do it. And the main tool is us. It's almost 100% us. The last conference call we had, several of the units, they've lost people to COVID. And they're talking about replacing with a part-time staff and it just doesn't work. Not with the population of Indiana being around 6 million-ish. 80 some people for 6 million is, I don't feel like it needs to be any less than that. Not if you want us to have any effect at all. And, because you get into one major case and, it can pull someone off for weeks. I just finished one up to 5 months, one case. And it's happened to them too. And so we're trying to avoid that desperately. And, we're not getting raises, we're not getting anything like that. So, I don't want you to feel like you're funding any kind of a raise or any of that. It's just, we're just trying to get just enough to do what we've been doing. If that makes sense.
After learning that Davies County has been subsidizing this whole time, and we haven't contributed one iota to it, that bothers me immensely.
But we didn't have to come to you.
Is there any way to put it through prosecutors? Maybe we,
Possibly.
Yeah, my budget, I can request it, sure, that's something I could request for next year. That's
I
the
guess the-
direction you wanna take.
I mean, I think it would be a possibility.
I don't know how it'll work to then distribute, well, that would be that would come from the general fund though, isn't that the issue that you were describing earlier?
It was for our benefits, yes. But if you make a donation to the program, it's my understanding from Patty that it wouldn't necessarily be for that. It'd be up to us to appropriate it.
Well, maybe their general fund's tapped to the point where they just can't do it, where ours.
That's a big part of it right there. And it doesn't jive well with state board of accounts. And like I say, Patty can explain that a
I'll have
lot.
to ask her about that part.
It would yeah, please, because I'm getting outside of my, I was hired to investigate cases and here I am, but yeah, Patty's a good one.
Doesn't like this ours and those other funds that we don't need to Doesn't that come out through the commissioner? So I wouldn't see why this would be any different.
Whatever works, I mean, I'm certainly willing to do that.
Yeah. And I don't have to have an answer today. I mean, if it takes you some time to work, that's
You
fine.
know, I think, I mean, personally, I don't know how everyone feels here, but I'd like to give it some more thought. I'd like for you to do some checking. I'd like to talk.
Consensus to move on and maybe help with.
Yeah, I think.
So you said your next budget starts July 1.
Correct.
So either we put it in our 22 budget and you get it early in the year, or you get it as an additional this fall.
Either way, probably the easiest would be the first of the year. You see, this is what happened last year. We didn't know this was gonna happen until like the 12th hour, literally. And it would go to the West to see me last year. But yeah,
So we have enough time if we want to put it in our 22 budget, no matter where we put it. If you want me to move on from that.
I mean, that's what I would like to do. Like I said, and then if we give us time to think about it and check with some other people and move forward.
totally understand that. But it's just, unfortunately, it's not easy when you start dealing with money to just, it's gotta go through a process. I get it, totally. I mean, just the fact that you're not saying, no, get out of our face, is a win to me. But,
Well, I definitely see some benefits to having it in your budget because you work with it more than anybody else.
Dan does put a little bit in his budget for us. It's not very much, I think it's like $1,500 a year that he puts in his budget just for us. But
So you have your own budget that you present to your council
Yes.
then, to Davis County?
oh yeah,
So you're a department in their county,
funded by the state.
but somehow they reimburse that money into that
The
fund.
state pays the contract and then it goes in that fund.
Every month I get a printout from Patty and this is what our expenses are. And then I send it to the state and then they have been pretty good. They've been reimbursing us within 30 to 60 days. It has gotten as far back as 4 or 5 months before, which that really, really hurts them. But yeah, that's how we do it.
I will do some work
Yeah.
between the three and we'll put it in a budget somewhere, maybe. I don't know how much you're thinking, but we'll discuss
You'll
that.
just talk about it.
And if you guys, if a day or two, if you digest all this, if you think it's something you want to ask me or whatever, just call the office and I'll call you in. You can ask me whatever you want. So, because I know I've thrown a lot at you.
I've talked to him several times, and I mean, it's interesting.
It's a lot to take in, but it really is. And I just scratched the surface on it, but yeah, if you can help us out, that would be wonderful. If you can't, I'll understand. Because we're not gonna quit coming to DuBois County, so we'll come down here, definitely. We're gonna work with everybody we already have, and we're just gonna do business as usual, so. But if you can help us, wonderful.
Robert, do you know your phone number in this?
No, but I'll give it to you. It's 812-254-8681. And if we're not in the office, leave a message. It dings my phone, and wherever I'm at, I'll call you back, or one of the girls will call you back.
You know, that was the other thing, it used to be hard to find in the phone book. When people would ask me, who do I call to get this going on? I said, well, it should be in the phone book, yellow pages or something to find you. And it was just always hard to find.
Yeah, well, fortunately, they do have us online now.
Good.
And they do have an actual online reporting program system. We got that a year or two ago, so.
Yeah.
So people can get us that way. That's most of that's how they get hold of us now. So, okay?
Okay, Rob, thanks.
Thank you all.
Thanks for staying for staff.
Thank you.
Yep,
Thank you
Thank
very much.
you for your time. Kara, you're next.
I've been instructed to talk quick, so. I think everybody got the email that I sent out last week, I hope, I'm just requesting What I'd like to request is up to $4,500 be taken out of the sex and violent offender budget and put towards lodging, the conference, food and gas. And then there's also a printer that we moved after Sergeant Wilson retired. We moved the administrative assistant back to an office so she can keep her, basically all of the confidential files located back there. But then when there's a sex offender that comes in, we'll go up front and do all the paperwork up there so they don't have to come back through the administrative part of the deputy side, the administrative side. That's why there's a printer on there also. So all of them total comes up to $39.50 and 80 cents. I just went a little above that in case there's something unexplained that happens at the conference or before then. But that's why I was just requesting up to $4,500. If you think that's too much, that's fine.
Is this covered in travel line item? Is that?
This fund is dedicated only for sex offender registry.
Yeah.
And that's-
So the money that's in there can only really be used
For
this purpose.
For sex offenders.
And really, we don't have anything budgeted right now, so it's a consensus to advertise and come back next month.
How many are going?
Just two. Kenya, who's our administrator of CIDNES, took over all of those realms of when they come into the office and Chris's. He was over that years ago. Now that he is the chief deputy, he's got different, so he'll take care of most of the filings if there's criminal charges or anything like that, just to have the head of it. But Kenya does all of the administrative work to it. So they have a conference once a year that I would like to send them to keep up on all the new rules and regulations and all that. So it's a worthy conference. This year just happens to be in New Orleans, yeah.
So is it in March?
No, it's in December.
I'm just saying.
Now, we don't pay that.
Oh, Mardi Gras, yeah.
They will have to keep their receipts
Yeah.
itemized.
Just like normal.
Yeah.
And yeah, we do have a travel, but
Now, outside of the state of Indiana or the state of Florida, we don't have tax exemptions, so they'll have to do taxes on the.
yeah, they called down there and they said just bring the tax exempt form and they'll
They may
see.
take it.
So they might take it, yeah.
That's, I mean, that'd be benefit, but they don't have to.
Right.
Well, I think your letter or your email was pretty self-explanatory. I appreciate you putting that to us ahead of time here.
Thank
you. I don't know if there's any discussion on this, or we want to make a hands up if we're going to approve it.
Consensus to advertise it.
So, all in favor? So it looks like a majority.
All right. Thank you guys.
Bring her back next time. Man, that was
Is that quick enough?
That was great. That was very good. Get us back on track.
Hello, I feel like I'm next, just jump right in. I have 3 things I'd like to talk to you about. I feel like I've talked to all of you about vote centers, but here I am officially getting in some minutes and just making it official, letting you know what we're doing. I presented to the election board a couple weeks ago that I think that DuBois County should become a vote center county. What does that mean? That means any voter can vote any location on election day. The election board decided to move forward, form a study committee, and dive into the many questions that concerns what details have to be worked out. So without going into all those details, the pros and cons of this is the convenience to the voter. Voter turnout would increase. I don't have hard facts on that, but every other county has had voter increase or voter turnout increase. It fluctuates with every election, we all know that, but it does help when you create convenience for the voter. The cons to this process is that we will have to purchase some more Wi-Fi hotspots. So if you're a vote center county, you must stay connected to the internet with your poll pad. So when you check in, when you go to vote, you check in on the poll pad. We stay connected today, but there are a few spots that are a little weak and we should have a backup plan if the internet that we use at that location today fails. So if we use a facility's internet, we should have a Wi-Fi as a backup. Or if we are using a Wi-Fi, we should have a strong enough one that will work throughout the day and nobody calls the election office and says we're having trouble connecting. So I don't have an exact number to that, but if we bought 10 Wi-Fi hotspots of the strongest option of the choices that we get from our vendor, it wouldn't be any more than $1,000. And I know that from previous quote that they gave me last year because I was looking at replacing 4 of them. So I don't have those strong numbers. The study committee will look at those specifically. The other thing is there has been conversation about locations. I feel like we've all talked about this already. In Jasper, the Havoc Center is one location we vote at today. They have preferred we not come back, and I haven't pushed on that subject just yet. I have, on this whole subject, went to every town and city council to talk to everybody about it. I feel like everybody should have some knowledge about what we're doing as an election board. Becky Beckman has been, she's volunteered to be on the study committee, and she's went with me to all of those meetings so far. We have to hit 2 more next week. We've got good interest. There's been several questions about it, but locations is something that the study committee will discuss. The election board has a member that would like to see maybe 1 or 2 locations less than we have today. I have plenty, again, I have expressed to each of you that I don't think our locations need to change. It does have to be a unanimous vote to the election board to pass a vote center. So while I don't want to speculate what locations could change, because I feel like the study committee has got 12 or 13 people involved, they will decide what to present, what plan to present to the election board for us to then come and ask you to sign a resolution on. So you would see what our plan is once that study committee comes up with a plan, and you can have all the time you want to review that and ask questions about that, and then the election board could say, we'll change something. So it's really just our whole process of getting to where we need to go. So the study committee will meet the first time May 17th at 6 o'clock. It's an election board meeting. That's a joint meeting with the study committee. It's open to the public. Anybody's welcome to come. If you have questions before then, I'm happy to answer any questions. So that's kind of the vote center conversation. The one thing that I did discuss when I was out talking to Jasper, Huntingburg, Ferdinand, and I will discuss with Holland, is on a municipality election cycle. To currently, the county budgets for an election, and in those municipality elections, we can invoice them for 75% of the cost of that election. So we recoup some of that money in a municipality election. They've all had lots of questions about why they should pay more, because if we were a vote center, they get 100% of that cost. So as an example, I think it was Jasper, they paid, I think it was, I'm kind of shooting from the hip here, $11,000 for the fall 2019 election. If that was 75% of that election cost that was related to Jasper expenses, they would have paid an additional $700 or $800 on that election cycle. So it's not a huge impact to them, but it is a little savings to the county. So it's just a recoup cost. There has been a couple years previous to me that they have to be invoiced that within 30 days of the election, and then if you invoice them late, they don't have to pay it. We had invoiced them late and they didn't pay it. So there's some gray area in that. I don't want to make it sound like I'm hiding anything when I present these things to you, but there's some recoup, and the city should pay for their election, in my opinion, and that's just a way for the county to recoup some of those funds through the whole process. So our next steps are, we'll meet as a study committee. We may meet once, or we may meet 5 or 6 times until we figure out what is a good plan that we can agree on, that we as a study committee could present to the election board. They will discuss locations. They will discuss just everything that entails in the election process, equipment, the technology that we use, the locations that we go to, poll workers, how much we pay poll workers, like all the details of the election have to be in that plan. Of course, I've done a lot of legwork and I've put a plan together as a starting point for us to start on. So I think we have a good starting place, but we'll work on that, and I'll be back to talk to you more about it once we have a plan. And if you can, if you like the plan and you would pass a resolution, that's one of the steps in moving forward for us. So I am on the calendar to come back in May to get a resolution signed. I don't know if that'll happen or not. I got on the calendar for the next meetings, and if I have to come off of there, then I will. So that's kind of the update on the vote center thing officially. The second thing I wanted to talk about is.
Can I have a question?
Yes.
Okay, so you said you had a member that may want to, take away 2 voting centers. Is there, besides cost, what is the reason that they'd wanna take down 2 more poll centers?
It's my understanding cost is the big driving point in his conversation. And I have.
And poll workers.
And getting poll workers, as Kitty is now new party chair, that falls on her. So getting poll workers is part of that conversation. I think we're fine on both sides. Again, it's my opinion. I have hard facts as to how much it costs every single location. And I don't think that it costs enough to justify closing any one location. As an example, if you take St. Anthony, the cost that we have for the building is $120. The cost for poll workers is less than $700. Like, it's less than $1,000 of a savings that we would have as an election board or as a county to close that one site. But we still have to program those machines and put them somewhere else. We would still use that because we still have that many voters coming. So we're not saving on the cost of programming those machines. And if you're moving, it's my opinion, if you're moving or you're closing this site, those voters are going to go somewhere else. Are we going to need more poll workers somewhere else to help that flow of people coming in and out? So those are the details that the study committee have to discuss. And what's the best decision for us as a county is what the study committee has to come up with. Does it make sense to save $1,000 here, or can we save $1,000 somewhere else? That's the way I've looked at it. So if cost is the driver, then where else can we save $1,000 is my question. I think that there's other areas that we could penny pick and save money.
Are you guys, are you on a budget? Or do you only get so much money per election, or is it,
Well, as far as I'm concerned, we present a budget as the election board.
have we given
Yeah.
you this is the amount you spend, that's it? Is there-
So when I presented budget for last year for the presidential election, I pulled previous election budgets to gauge how was it submitted before and what was the details within that. And I programmed out what I thought we needed to do this past election, and we met our budget. We stayed under budget. We spent, I think the budget for 2020 presidential election was $98,000 for the whole year, the primary and we stayed under budget in a COVID year. So I think we did get an $8,000 grant from the Secretary of State's office for PPE, but I think that we budget accordingly, and I think we do it smart. We don't overspend in any one area, and I think that it's hard to squeak out $1,000 savings somewhere else when I think about saving $1,000 for closing a polling location. But I also say, should we be squeaking out $1,000 and saving in an election? Like, I don't think you should have to skimp paying for an election.
I'm happy to give my personal opinion. I don't think that voters should be inconvenienced, just so that we can save $1,000 or $2,000.
I do want to say, I think we should be physically smart. I should be responsible with taxpayer dollars. And if we're looking at why do we vote here, or why should we not vote here, or, what are the questions? I think this process opens up that conversation, and we can say what works and what doesn't work. I have spent days upon days gathering data. I can tell you how many voters showed up. I can tell you if they showed up early or they voted at their precinct-specific location. I can tell you how much it costs per vote at that location for that election cycle. I have it down to pennies, if we could save money somewhere. And I am I am of the opinion that we should not close a location. The other things that came up were, at our election board meeting, somebody said they felt like that when we talk about locations, Jasper Middle School location, they have changed their whole traffic dynamics because they have a new elementary school. And where voters park and walk across the road out there is right in the middle of their flow of traffic. So they brought up that could be an area of concern. Of course, it's near and dear to my heart as a pedestrian who was hit on the road. I am very attentive to that conversation. I think it's a 15-minute window in the morning and a 15-minute window in the afternoon. We didn't have any problems last fall. The school was very accommodating to us when we said, hey, you have a different traffic flow and we have a bunch of people that could be showing up in the morning. Can you help us? Their school resource officer did help us, and we did not have any accidents. So I think voters have to play a certain level of responsibility in that conversation. If you know that there's school drop-offs or pickups, then maybe you don't go vote at that time. You got 11 other hours in the day to go vote if you want to vote there. So, but those things again are what the study committee will talk about and digest and have lots of opinions from different areas. The study committee is made up of, we have Becky who's on the council, we have Nick Hossetter from the commissioners, we have somebody from every school district, whether they be an elected official or a poll worker. We've gathered poll workers that came in. We have the election board. I think there's, I don't have a list in front of me, 12 or 13 people that are on that committee. And I think that we have a good mixture of people that have had lots of experience with elections and maybe some that are limited to the election process but have a different stake in the game. So I think that first meeting will tell us a lot as to which direction we're going to go. I feel like it's been positive feedback so far as we went to each council and talked about things. I haven't had anybody say it's a bad idea, just because we're driving at voter convenience. Again, we don't have the fine details that we want until we have a couple meetings, I think. So the study committee will meet. It would be my guess that they will meet at least 2 or 3 times, and they'll have, we'll have to have once we have a draft plan that we want to present to the election board, and then we would need to get a resolution from the council and a resolution from the commissioners that agree that we could do this. Then we have to open that plan up to the public. We have a public meeting, and we have to have a 30-day period of where the public could comment on that plan. And then the election board could then take an action on that plan. So it would be my guess that the study committee would maybe meet 2 or 3 times. They would hold a public meeting, and then the election board would have to meet 2 or 3 times in addition to those study committee. So I point out those many meetings because as we met and discussed vote center plan, one of the election board members was a election board member previous when we discussed vote centers a number of years back. And he pointed out that in that non-election year that they did get paid as an election board. So my second thing that I wanted to ask you tonight is an additional appropriation. I want to ask for $600 to pay those 2 election board members. The election board is made up of Roger Messmer, who is the Republican member and the president of the board. John Bierk is the Democrat member of the election board, and I am the secretary of the election board as the county clerk. At the time when we were planning for the 2021 budget, I didn't really know we would be discussing vote centers or how it would progress. So I didn't ask for the election board to be paid in this non-election year. So after our meeting, and that election board member asked if we could get paid, the previous clerk had it in the budget. I did a little digging. It was in the budget for them. The previous clerk budgeted, I think it was their normal election. She asked for $1,800, which is the normal, no, it's not the normal. It's a little less than the normal. pay for the election board. In a normal year, the election board receives, the clerk receives $1,600 and each of the other two members receives $600 each. So that's the normal pay for the election board. She asked, in the previous time, she asked for $1,800 and was given $900. So each board member received $300 that year when they discussed vote centers and went through all the meetings that they had. So as I was trying to figure out how to ask for money, which I hate asking for money, I discussed with Greg Schneer, as an elected official, I am not allowed to ask for more money for myself in the current year. So I'm not asking to be paid for the work that I'm doing in my efforts to become a vote center county. The election board member asked if they would be paid, and I don't have it in any other place to move from one fund to another. So I'm here to ask if you would approve $600 for those, $300 each for those two election board members that are going through all these meetings and planning in an effort to get us passed as a vote center. Thoughts, questions?
So it has not been advertised,
Correct.
so it's a consensus if you want us to move forward. So you're asking for $1,200.
No, I'm asking for $600,
So to pay each one
$300 to
okay.
Roger and $300 to John.
Do we have any discussion on that, or is there any?
So they're asking for 300, so on a normal year, and did I miss what they normally get paid?
On a normal year, last year as an example, they received $600. They received $300 in the spring and then $300 in the fall. It gets turned in as a claim after the election is over.
So here, when would they get paid after you decide to make this a vote center?
When the funds would be available and we would get through the meetings, I would put a claim in for them.
I could say probably towards the end of the year when you're all finished with your processes.
Any comments from anyone on paying $300 each for Roger Geisler and John Beard? Let's have a consensus vote then to approve that if we're ready. So, all in favor? Just like 6-1.
I'll have to know who dissented.
So the last thing that I want to talk about is a records library copier. Is on its very last leg. It is 11 years old, and it has given us a few issues over the last few years. Jackie, the recorder, had looked at replacing it a couple of years ago, and we decided maybe we try to hang on to it for a little bit. It is now needing a new drum. It needs, it would cost about $500 to repair it. And Hoosier Business Machines recommends that we get a new machine. So I asked them to submit a quote to me, and I received a quote for $1,716. It is a smaller unit that fit than what's in the records library today. We don't need the same size unit. We don't need to copy bigger pieces of paper out of the books. If something was needed that's a bigger copier, we can bring it upstairs to either the recorder's office or the clerk's office. So I think the smaller unit is perfect for down there. And it comes with a maintenance contract, so it'll treat us very well for a number of years. I would like to spend money out of the clerk's perpetuation fund for that. So I would like to Sandy, correct me how this needs to happen. We need to get it approved and then advertised, or?
You want a consensus to advertise clerk's perpetuation?
Yes.
Did you say $1,716?
Yes.
Is the public using that?
No.
Well, kind of. It's not the public that operates it. If the public comes in and they need a copy of something, they would get a copy downstairs. Otherwise, it's stuff that we print from the computer or copies that we need within the courthouse. Most of it, because I'm paying for it out of the perpetuation fund, it's court files that we need copies of downstairs.
And you said how much, 1,700?
1,716. Again, out of the perpetuation fund, that the money is there and it's allowed to be used for that purpose. Just need to get permission to use it.
Any questions on what she's requesting there? Okay, so all in favor of spending $1,716 in clerk's perpetuation fund for a new copier to advertise for that. So all in favor? Unanimous vote to approve.
I do have an additional for election.
That's after we get a draft plan. That was what we put on the back burner until we get a draft plan.
Okay.
Greg and I talked. I originally got on the agenda to get our resolution for vote centers signed tonight, but as I dug into more details, found that we really need a plan to present to you so you know what you're agreeing to. So we will be back with that.
So
You want me to take that?
I can just table it for now?
Yeah, table it for now.
Because it's been advertised, it's just, we'll table it.
It's just, yeah.
And we can always bring it back.
So what did that have to do with it? It was $4,600 for maintenance agreements.
Yeah, that's.
It was something, I don't,
So that's what I had.
Yeah, $600 for election maintenance agreement.
Was it just a typo? Was it supposed to be $600 without the $4? A dollar sign instead of $4?
I just have election maintenance agreements, other services, $4,600.
I just.
124.35.
124, it's 124.35.
I don't know, 124.35 election maintenance agreements, 4,600.
No, that was the no ink contract. Sorry, I forgot about that. So I got 4 things to talk about here. I'm so trying to hurry too.
I normally write things down for a reason.
$4,600. No Ink is our vendor for our poll pads, and we pay them a yearly contract. And last year, they said they submitted an invoice to us in December for the $4,600 that was supposed to be spent in the presidential election. And I never received that invoice. They said they sent it directly from their QuickBooks system, and I never received it. So they sent me an invoice 2 weeks ago or so, and said they would like their $4,600 for for last year's election contract. So I went to Sandy and said it was in the budget last year, but that budget's gone. I don't have access to it anymore to just write a claim out for that. So
Too late for me to encumber it.
yes. So
It wasn't spent, obviously.
remind me what we have to do. Is that just
It's been advertised, if they want to.
it's an additional appropriation
Appropriation?
that would be put in, that fund number that you read off is out of the election, would have been the funds that I used in 2020 to file a claim. There's just no money budgeted this year because there's no election.
Any questions on that?
Sorry, I forgot about that.
No,
So we would need a motion to
Yep.
approve $4,600
Yep.
appropriation for maintenance agreement from 2020.
yes, I make the motion.
I'll second.
Becky, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carried unanimous. So.
I was a little put off by that. I was like, wait, what do you mean? I forgot about it.
Five things.
Yeah, sorry. No
That's all
more.
right.
That's it.
That's why we make notes.
Yep. Thank you. Thanks for your time. Thank you.
Thanks for the good explanation of it.
If anybody wants to talk about vote centers, I'm all ears. Come my way. Ask Becky. She's really knowledgeable by now. Thanks.
Okay.
And then we not see just additional appropriations at this time.
And then Carla's here for the very end.
Oh, okay, my next. All right.
Well, we're just running behind, so.
No, that's fine. Yeah, I actually am not really sure. I'm not really sure.
Now or you want to wait? It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Oh, did you have
No,
other
you're
stuff
fine.
you wanted to take care of? Okay. Yeah, I actually am sort of just here because I'm not exactly sure how the process is going. But so what I wanted to do is just kind of, I guess, let you guys know a little bit what we're kind of in the process of doing with the Solid Waste Management District. We've got 2 folks retiring this year. Out of the 3 full-time staff members, 2 are retiring, one on June 1st and one on July 6th. So that is great fun, as you might imagine. Basically, the one position that is retiring, Bill Pennington has been with the Solid Waste District for 20 plus years, and he is the process center manager. And so what I wanted to do with that position, because we have kind of grown in the types of things that we're doing and we keeping busier and busier, is to kind of switch that into an operation, call that position operations manager, okay? So I kind of talked to my board about this, if Sonia might remember from our March meeting, and they, thought that was a good idea to go ahead and kind of start to pursue that. And so basically, talked to Marky about it. Marky really feels like it needs to be done, and I was a little confused about a classification process. I approached Charmaine about it, who then kind of forwarded that to Craig and Elmer as well, with the committee that does.
Yeah, we're meeting tomorrow morning, and I didn't put much thought into like the way, how much, like the timeline for the hiring. I'm like, oh, the commissioners approved any changes in the classification. We deal with the money side, so we need to make a recommendation to the commissioners on what change to make, and they don't meet until next month.
May 3rd. I'm on the agenda for their May 3rd meeting, but I guess today I just kind of at least wanted everybody to kind of know what's going on. We're actually in the so Marky is very supportive of this and really feels like it needs to, and I guess what Charmaine had mentioned is that changing a couple of, with the operations manager, what I also wanted to do was, besides just the name change, which to me explains the position a little better than process center manager. It's really more than just managing the process center, is to add a little more supervisory and administrative roles to that. I have no office manager or part-time office person there at the Solid Waste District. So having somebody that could do a little bit more of that administrative stuff, which that operations manager position could kind of fulfill some of that then. So Marky is very, he feels like this is, so what we're doing, we are in the process of getting applications in and actually doing interviews this week. So I guess you guys will talk tomorrow, because I know Marky said he was meeting with you guys tomorrow. So I guess what the plan to do was to go ahead and hire under the, the current one, and letting that person know that we're in the process and we're hoping that it's going to, probably maybe go to a different classification.
So when would you actually offer the job?
What's that?
When would you actually offer the position? Like if you do your interviews this week? Because my thought is if we make our recommendation, we meet tomorrow, make a recommendation, you meet with the commissioners on May 3rd. We could, the way I see this going is we could tentatively say, if the commissioners approve that change, we would approve the salary at that rate.
So you're saying like you guys would sort of pre-approve that this evening with their, like if their recommendation is that what you're?
I think so.
Okay.
Like that, Sandy?
I think so.
Right.
And the commissioners do it to you guys, pending.
Right. And my thought is if they don't approve it, then you just
keep it as it doesn't happen.
Right. You just go with
So my original hope was to have that person in place by May 3rd. That's not gonna happen at this point. Just a variety of things going on. But we have gotten good applicants, so I'm pretty excited about that. I was a little worried with the unemployment rate being so low here, but basically ASAP. But if it has to wait for a little bit, I was hoping to have Bill train the person in a little bit. He's going to be taking May 15th. He is taking 2 weeks vacation, and then we'll come back on June 1st for his last day. So I was kind of hoping to get somebody in there before then. He's so flexible, he would probably, I would hate to ask him to do that, but you know, if he really wanted to train the person in, he might come in like the last week instead of, you know, kind of switch that around a little bit. But that was my original plan.
Well, it still might work though, if you can talk
It
about
could,
it.
yeah, it could, yeah, so anyway, so I'm not I've been really confused about the process, and apparently I got mixed up a little bit about the process, so I apologize for that. I would have come to you guys earlier, had I realized, or I don't know, would have come to the commissioners earlier. But so there's that, I guess, with the classification. And then due to the way the money is put in the county line item, then there might be an additional appropriation if we increase that pay with that
We'd have to look
classification.
We'd have to look at how much is in there and how much more would be needed.
And I've kind of got those numbers based on what
Because I don't know what you're.
I know, and I've got that stuff kind of figured out, but I didn't know if that's something to try to take care of tonight or to wait.
They can only do a consensus because it hasn't been advertised.
Right, okay, so, okay.
It won't become like a major problem until
The end of the year.
It wouldn't be, exactly,
Well,
yeah, but I mean, we would need
I
to
didn't
know.
prepare salary ordinance or anything, so. But like you said, if you start them out at the process center, and then we work on all this, and then we could bump them up maybe after.
And then do
it
an
gets through the.
Yeah, I mean, the additional appropriation to cover any extra funds that might be approved would have to be done till later, but we would want to make sure that everybody is on board with that. We wouldn't want
If
to.
she comes to you and you all say, no, we're not doing it, it's a moot point.
So,
Let me find the email again, or you can just tell me, what were you thinking to pay them? The rate?
So basically, that pay right now, it's and I apologize, because I dropped all my stuff off, it's probably in Murphy's room right now. I dropped everything off to him this morning, and left all my stuff there. That is what's it called? The LTC, it's an LTC 4. Right, and so, the top pay range, let's see. The top pay range for an LTC 4 is, I think, 2016. Okay, so, and then the LTC 5 starts at like 1804 and goes to something else. So that 2016, if I was able to pay that, that would still be in that 4 if there was no classification change. It would just be kind of up it because of those extra supervisory things.
So that would be the top of the range?
That would be the top of the range. So I've got this figured out here. So at $17.78 now per hour, that's $2.38 per hour more, which would be $166.60 per pay period, which is, if we take 16 pay periods, that's $2,665.60. Add a little bit in for our other, like the FICA and all that stuff.
So you'd have to add that in.
So, I would think 4,000 would cover it completely, like more than enough.
So you're talking wage and benefits?
I think that would, if we're only increasing the wage by $2,665.60, the benefits, it probably wouldn't be more than $3,500, but.
$2,665.60 wage increase?
Yes, for the remainder of this year.
No. And this is a full-time job. that would mean at least $505 benefits.
So,
I'm
yeah.
rounding up.
So if, I guess what I was thinking, if it's, I don't know, if we could just say, you know, up to $3,500, which would cover, you know,
This bill already has health insurance, so that's not an issue.
and he's got the +1,
But that, I mean,
right, yeah.
So do you have an individual that you're thinking is qualified?
We have several good applicants and we're interviewing Wednesday and Thursday. We did one interview last week for an individual who was gonna be on vacation this week. So we're just kind of still,
what's the current rate of pay?
the current rate of pay,
You said 17.
I believe it's 1778. I'm sorry, I like dropped all of that off in Marky's office and didn't realize it until.
And you're wanting to go to the top of the range.
Well, I thought if we could get, if we could plan on that possibility, and then when we hire, we'll kind of know if that's what we wanna,
And they are
put
40 hours a
them
week? This is a 40-hour week position?
35.
35.
Yeah, 1778.
Okay, thank you.
That's what you-
I had all that stuff down and I dropped all that stuff off to Marky this morning for, when he was calling folks for interviews.
So you're not, I mean, the commissioners wouldn't change the classification. You're just wanting to increase to the top of the wage.
Well, we're thinking of that wage would, kind of overlap both, the 4 and 5, so.
Right, we just need to look at that's the way we're meeting. We need to look at the job description, compare it to some of the other positions that have like the same type of
Okay.
supervisory type roles, and make sure that they're classified correctly. If they are, we'll leave it alone. We'll make the recommendation to leave it alone. If we feel like a change needs to be made, then we can make a recommendation. But I don't feel like we can do that, just email it back and forth. I don't think that's. I feel like we need to be thorough and neat and really dive into it. So I'll use the email that you sent.
Right, yeah. So then I guess the question is there any action or anything that the council needs to take this evening in order for me to do anything with the commissioners on May 3rd regarding that?
Well, if there's not a salary ordinance ready, I don't think we can.
I don't know what the current salary ordinance says. I don't know if it says 17 or if it just says the maximum of what she has in the line item. I don't know that well. Looking at it.
Well, the budget book, which is the salary ordinance.
But that's where we get it from.
Yeah, it's, the max is 1778 per hour.
See, so then you can't go any higher unless, and I don't have one.
Unless there's a salary ordinance.
So if it doesn't change the classification, then he's already gonna be at the highest.
No,
But
it's not the highest of the classification.
the 1778 is what is in this year as the max, for that position, but the classification itself has a range from like 15 something to 2016. So, what I would be asking is, regardless of whether there was a classification change, if since we've added some extra duties to that, can we go ahead and up that, this year? I just, like I said, I've been really confused about the process. I didn't realize the classification. I thought maybe there was just a score sheet or something for the classification, and so I apologize for not, I've been talking to Sandy a few times, and I'm like, okay, now what do I do now? So, it's just been kind of confusing, for me.
Okay, and then,
Well, in my opinion, I think we kind of need to meet tomorrow.
right,
Commissioners need to say yes or no, whatever you guys decide, if you guys say up or down. And then we need to either advertise and get a new salary ordinance for the next meeting. That's my opinion. It's cleaner that way.
right, I think that's the way.
Because I think if you do a lot of stuff tonight, you don't really know yet, because you guys may look at it and go, there doesn't need to be a change.
Yeah, I guess, my concern, I guess, is, if everybody is gonna support something like this. I guess that's my concern. But what we're planning on doing is trying to hire in at the 1778, as it is.
Because really, that's what you're tied to at the moment.
So the two part-time people, the permanent person would take over their responsibility. Are you still gonna hire another part-time person?
There's no part-time with this. I'm sorry, no, we have part-time people. This is, so we still have part-time people.
Okay.
Like the process center attendant.
Okay.
So yes, we'll still have part-time people.
I think what's confusing is you have two people retiring, but you're only talking about one of their positions.
Yeah.
She's gonna deal with the other retiree later.
Soon, and this one, I'm sorry, so the second one then is, and I'm not really sure how it's listed on you guys' stuff, but route driver, and then, has been like, I think it says maybe solid waste assistant or something, and I would just be calling that operations assistant, route driver / operations assistant, which we will start, and Marky thought too, not to advertise for those at the same time as far as the job positions. So, basically, as soon as we're done with this one, then we start advertising and get a route driver in. And there won't be changes, there won't be requested changes on that position. I mean, unless we just can't find anybody that'll work for those wages. Then we might have to, but I think we'll be okay.
And both of them are full-time people.
They are both full-time, yes.
I don't wanna speak for you, but now would be the time to make the change to get more responsibility on this, to hire for an operations manager so that you have more help on the office side and not just somebody managing, the process center side.
Yeah, and I mean, in all actuality, the process center attendant has stepped in, and that person will step in when I'm on vacation. That person has to make sure everything's going, well, and Bill has done that, and he stepped in as director several times and stuff, so, he's kind of done that along the way, but he doesn't do a lot of the, administrative type stuff. He only does the bare minimum that is asked to do.
Yeah, so it sounds to me like you want some more support. You'd like to hire somebody that can offer more support. You want to classify them and pay them and have that be the job description. Whereas now it's just kind of, if you can fill in for me, that'd be great.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know if there's anything that needs to be done tonight, but I at least wanted to fill everybody in and be on the agenda just in case.
So Charmaine, are you thinking the assistant job, you're not gonna look at that tomorrow? You're only looking at the one?
I've not asked for any other. The only thing I've asked for is the process center to operations manager. Yep, classification.
So we'll just bring it back, and if you guys are all in agreement, we'll bring it back to the next meeting, once all these people, everything's pending, what happens in the committee and the commissioners.
Okay, and so I'm on the May 3rd for the commissioners. So that, after that will be after you guys' meeting, and they're the ones that approve the classification change? And then you guys would approve if there's extra funding involved in that classification change?
Right, we do an additional appropriation potentially for, the overlap time, plus if there is a change in the salary ordinance, the additional amount that needs to go in that line item to cover the wage for the rest of the year, the salary.
Alright.
So if you hire somebody, they're just gonna start off a little lower at the beginning.
Yeah. This is their training period. Like the old, what would we call that? Probationary.
The probationary period, yeah. Which, and I mean, I thought about, doing that anyway, because you never know what they can handle, and this I feel like will kind of help if we get somebody that is less capable of those things. I mean, I'm doing them now anyway, I'm just having a hard time keeping up with everything. If we get somebody that is less skilled, then they can get paid less if it's in, so I feel really good about, the change, and so I hope everything goes through okay with it. I think this was good to kind of help you guys understand now, since the several things going on. So does anybody have any questions or comments or anything about that?
I might call you tomorrow morning.
That is no problem whatsoever. What time are you guys meeting?
10 o'clock.
10, okay, all right. Sounds good. All right, and again, feel free to reach out at any time if you have any questions or concerns about anything, so. All right.
Thank you, Carla.
Yeah.
Guess we'll move on to appropriation.
Okay, I've got a bunch of them, that's for sure. Steve Burke was here 2 meetings ago, or 3 meetings ago, talking about some of these, so a lot of these are the highway, but, the first one that I have on my agenda is for the ambulance CPR mannequins that we talked about last month, $2,700 from Cume Cap, capital outlay.
So, anybody got any questions on that CPR mannequins? Okay, so, entertain a motion, I guess, to, have an additional appropriations of Cume Cap, right? The $2,700.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Craig made a motion,
I'll second.
Sonia seconded, so all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Unanimous.
Okay. Cume Cap, highway equipment, $155,000, and that is for
That grader or whatever.
sanitation truck and chassis, single axle dump truck, and a flatbed ton truck, and these are like 50/50. Some of it's gonna be out of highway, some of it's gonna be out of Cume Cap. I have a breakdown of sanitation chassis would be 85,000, single axle dump would be 40, and flatbed ton truck is 30.
Can we act on that as one?
Yes, it's one thing, 155 is one thing.
I move that we approve the $155,000 for highway equipment from Cume Cap.
Is there a second?
Second.
Alex seconded, so all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Unanimous.
Then I've got, I think that's all for Cume Cap, right?
Yes.
Then highway, that's split into two. I have out of the restricted, highway split into two different line items. One is restricted, one is not. The flatbed and the single axle and an SUV for the engineer are coming out of that one, $97,500. So it's a part of the flatbed, a part of the single axle, and then the whole SUV truck.
And that's 97.
97.5 for that one.
Is that a separate motion?
It's one by itself.
The 97.5 is?
Because it's all in the equipment. I'm just trying to tell you what came up to it.
Okay, so we have I need a motion, I guess, to, out of highway, to approve 97.5 for those 3 items.
So moved.
Okay, so may I have a second?
I'll second.
Becky seconded, so all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carries unanimous.
Okay, then the highway, restricted portion,
So that was unrestricted. the first
that was just a regular operating. Then they have restricted funds that have to be used for preventive maintenance, if that's that stupid wonky law.
Yeah.
37,500 comes out of that one. Restricted has a single axle and flatbed portions of that one as well.
I move we approve the $37,500 from the restricted portion of the highway equipment fund.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion to approve it, and second, so all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Also passes unanimously.
The last thing out of the highway is for vehicle insurance. I don't know if you guys are aware, if your family's in insurances, but ours are everything's going up. Our insurance for our vehicles, our insurance for our building, our insurance for our travel, our cybersecurity with travelers, everything's going up this year. I don't know. So Ann is feeling the same thing with the highway, so their vehicle insurance, she needs $7,000 more to cover their expenses of their vehicles. Highway, yes.
Okay, so there's $7,000 we need out of highway for vehicle insurance. May I have a motion?
I'll make that motion, Mike.
Becky's made a motion, and a second.
I'll second.
Sonia seconded, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. So was, curiosity on that one. So was that quoted, or does that come due this time of the year?
They come due, our insurances are all due around February, March.
Okay. Makes sense.
And most things came in higher. We had a couple of ambulances that were totaled, and that really hurt our mod rates. It's just, and then the life in general, insurances have gone up this year.
Okay, thanks.
I just don't want to forget one here. The solid waste sticker money, they need $85,000 for the trash truck. That's a 50-50 that he talked about as well. No, wait a minute, that's not 50-50. Trash truck is solely coming out of this one. Sorry. So this is the sticker money that they collect at the things. They're gonna buy a trash truck with that money.
The trash truck. Okay, so,
I'll make the motion, Mike.
we have a second.
I'll second. Go ahead,
Doug seconded. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously.
Okay, Brent was here, speaking about the two bridges, Bridge 14 and Bridge 94. Bridge 14 is on Division Road in Madison Township. Bridge 94 is at 400 South and 130 West in Patoka Township. And they're $90,000 each, so it's $180,000 total.
So that's one. Okay.
So is that right there?
They're working on those bridges, is all I can tell you. Brent was here last.
That's important. So we need an additional appropriation for bridge repair on bridges 14 and 96 on the Cume Bridge. So
It's 14 and 94.
I'll make that motion.
Somebody's made a motion, and a second.
I'll second.
Charmaine seconded, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So motion carries unanimously.
It's hard when they come to meetings back and then you gotta remember them this time. That's what's hard. Okay. And then the next thing is in the general fund. This is again, insurance for the sanitation department there's a small budget in the county general that's for sanitation. And that's where the insurances are paid for the sanitation. So Ann needs $4,000 in that budget.
I would approve $4,000 in the general fund.
Second.
Charmaine made a motion and Becky seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carries unanimously.
And then, last time we talked about the payout or the COVID payout for Tammy Humphrey and for Sean Werner. We're gonna put that in the Commissioner's Fund, general, the payout is $11,885, that's wages and benefits.
Okay.
$11,885, I can break it down further if you need it.
Yeah, it's here, 10,000 for the payout, FICA 765, PERF is 1120.
Yeah, it was on the,
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
So we have a motion to approve, the data. Okay, Doug, made a motion. Yeah, second.
I'll second.
Charmaine seconded, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimous.
we did the salary ordinance last time, I believe, didn't we?
We don't,
Oh, no, I don't have it yet. If we need one, I'll have to bring one.
well, wait. No, that, we did the payout for his vacation time.
So I need a salary ordinance for that, I don't have one. That's my bad.
So we'll have to wait another month.
Hmm?
We'll have to wait another month.
Oh,
No, I'm not saying anything, I'm just saying,
nope,
that's how it's gonna work.
I can bring one to the next meeting and you can sign it at that time. I just didn't bring it. Unless you wanna sign it, and I'll get you guys to sign it, that's my bad, I just don't have it.
So, how would you want to handle that? I mean, is it okay we wait till next month, or should we
Yeah.
approve it?
But, I mean, it's really up to you guys, do you wanna approve it, and then we can retro sign it, we can wait to sign it next time?
I mean, they won't get paid, they're not allowed to get paid until we sell it.
Right.
How does it read, how would it read?
It would just say, was it 6,000 for one and 4,000 for the other?
What's benefits?
Well, you don't need benefits on the salary ordinance, you just need the salary. I mean, I could run over and make one if you guys wanna wait around.
We can, so we don't have to worry about it, possibly forget next week, or next time. Unless anything needs to be.
It's just a matter of,
Yeah, 6,000.
it's 6,000 and 4,000, I know that. Well, let's get through these and then I can,
Do that,
I can run,
You wanna finish the other ones?
There it is. 6,000 for Tammy, 4,000 for Sean.
I don't think we did it last time.
No, we did.
Okay, I'll run over and get it real quick.
Oh, wait. Yeah, I don't have the minutes in. Oh, wait, they're like.
Yeah, you do. Look if there's a salary ordinance.
Find out where that. Okay. Commissioners recommended the consensus was to advertise for an additional, the amount of that. So I don't think we did the actual.
It won't take me long if I run over there, you just have to wait on me just a few minutes.
Wait, that reads, I don't see some other ordinance.
No, because I would say salary ordinance on it.
Right,
That's my fault. To continue on though with these,
Workman's comp insurance.
again, insurance has gone up. We, paid our rent workers' comp bill and we need $10,000.
So the workman's comp insurance to be paid out of the general fund,
Yep.
$10,000. I have a motion to approve that.
I'll make that motion, Mike.
Okay, Becky made a motion, we have a second. Second. Alex seconded, so all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carried unanimous.
One more.
The director pay, or we talked about this last time, the 2-week overlap from Stuart taking over for Gina. This is $4,846 out of the statewide 911 fund.
I think it's a 4-week overlap.
Huh?
4-week overlap, isn't it?
Sorry, it's two payroll,
Two pay period.
two pay period
You
overlap.
said 2 weeks ago.
Sorry,
That's okay.
payroll.
What was that amount?
7846.
It's on the bottom of the sheet I gave you.
So to pay the
To pay both of them the same, there's rate at the same time.
Yeah,
the director's pay of 911 and the pay the benefits out of the statewide 911.
Yes.
$4,846, but I have a motion. Craig made a motion, Bryce, have a second.
A second.
Charmaine seconded, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carried then.
Okay, I do have a budget transfer in the CARES test vaccine. They didn't need as much money in the PRN personal services, so they're moving it to operating expenses, $796.77.
79677.
$796.77.
So may I have a motion to make that transfer? Doug made a motion to transfer it, I have a second. Sonia seconded, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carried unanimous.
Okay. Here already. This is a new Moderna grant that Sean's getting. There's the proposed budget. These are the, when you look across the top, these line items what each of these. He's not sure if they're gonna do salaries with it. He's still trying to get them to maybe just give the equipment like we talked about, like the meters. If they do that, then this budget will change. But this is what I have for the moment.
It's probably to get from it, the June, I'm like,
Yeah, yeah.
he doesn't have much leeway.
No, he doesn't. And so then what I have is a salary ordinance to go with that, and we mirrored the other test site, $20 for the clinic, temporary clinic nurses, $15 an hour for the administrative clerks, $22.33 for the PRN, and we put in health staff comp time of $4,000. Hopefully we won't need it, but we thought if you would need it for salaries, then we have all this stuff prepared. If they move it to other operating, then we won't need this. So I got this one done.
So do we want to go ahead and pass this, or do we need to wait and see what he can actually?
I think he's still waiting to hear it. I just wanted to show you so we could do the salary ordinance and have it prepared. We have the, I mean, he's got the grant approved. He's just waiting to hear if they can change how they're gonna spend it.
Because I guess where my concern is if he wants to go ahead and spend it on the equipment side,
He won't need it for salaries then.
will we need to do any appropriation whatsoever? Will we have to wait until the end of May to?
You shouldn't have to appropriate it because the grant appropriates it.
Okay, that's what I want to make sure of.
But like I said, we're still waiting to hear from them, and it's gonna be gone before it even is here.
So if we pass that tonight,
If you pass the salary ordinance, we can at least pay people if he does get it and needs to use it. But what I understood about the Moderna grant is they were giving us money to have 5 clinics, and like, he was thinking of doing it at Jasper Engines or at companies and taking people there to have a clinic. But some of that's kind of changing. Because I think the clinic people are having their own staff, or our staff is going on work time, so we may not need temporary people for them.
so do you want to, may I have a motion maybe to accept this salary ordinance for the Moderna grant? I don't know if we need to read. It's the same as the other grant, I mean, as far as wages.
We mirrored it identically.
Okay.
It's a 12,000 some odd dollar grant.
This is 781.
Yeah.
781.46. It's on this budget sheet, grant sheet.
Yeah. And then the salaries are across the top.
Okay, yeah, that's right, you're on that, I didn't notice that. Thanks. So could I have a motion maybe to approve that salary ordinance?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Charmaine has made a motion, we have a second.
I'll second.
Okay, seconded, so all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously.
Okay, that's all I'm gonna have. If you want me to run over to that other salary ordinance,
Yeah,
I'm glad to
can
go
we-
do
can we
it.
I just wanna make a couple of comments, which, about the park, we missed, they had a park meeting, so we can go ahead, unless you want to be here.
I can always,
Let
me know.
That we can wait for you.
that's fine. Let me go get this salary ordinance. I'll be right back.
I would like to take 5 minutes for that, because.
Okay, well, let's take a break.
It's a little while.
In there. Otherwise, get it right out there.
Yes, yes. Yeah. I am.
We just rested.
Thinking about, our meeting tomorrow, for, the solid waste. Yeah, I just wanna, long like it's in a while.
Yeah. You know, and they're only 35-hour jobs. When I went there, Bill's busy, I'm like, I wonder when this new person's gonna have time to go in and do
And do the other
other
duties
stuff.
that, yeah.
So unless she starts putting some of those duties on the 4-day-a-week guy. I don't know. It's gonna change Bill and Charlie or fight.
There,
We're just looking for a fight.
how long has Charlie been out there?
Well, he was at the highway department first, so I don't really remember how many years he's been, so.
You know, well, I don't go out there that often, but they're always helpful, you know, when you go out there, they always. Good.
Well, the other day, a bunch of stuff come in, so I was helping on some stuff. Charlie got in from his round and mowed, and, you know, just always stuff to do.
We're gonna paint dumpsters again, that gets approval from the commissioners, they have to do the whole process, but, middle of June, I think we're looking at like the 16th or something, so we gotta get approved with the commissioners and, getting all that stuff, it's exciting, so yeah.
It's fun.
Who meets the sort of volunteers to do that?
It's the community arts, Jasper Community Arts, they have people who are, I can't say they're members, but they are included out there and they do, so, so I think this year we might ask, some high school art students who, are involved in there, so they're gonna, I think we have, you know, if you count the front and the back or the dumpster, you know, we possibly have 16 sides that can be painted, so it's, kind of neat, so.
I think I can, go ahead.
I was gonna ask you, how you got those trees all covered up, did you use a giant step ladder?
We use the wind. We use the wind. I hold one end, one of the kids holds the other end, and then we make it real tight so that the wind like poofs it up. And then Barry just takes the broom handle and it just goes right over the top.
Those are tall trees to be covered under bushes.
Yeah, we have 3 trees in our yard and with the freeze, we wanted to make sure we don't keep all our fruit. Good fruit.
Weird stuff.
Yeah, so we're the hillbillies that live right along the highway and everybody can see all the weird things we do in our yard.
Hillbilly. Well, the highway, usually hillbillies are out, you know, down the lane.
I know, we show right by the highway, we show off our hillbilliness. There you go. We're not too proud to show that.
You should, there's nothing wrong with that.
Okay, so just real briefly, this wage classification discussion, you'll notice that soil and water was on there too. Judy Brown wanted us to look at, there's some holes. You know, we don't have PAT 1 and PAT 2, like actual categories with wage ranges there, because whenever we classified the positions we had, nobody really like fit into those lower professional categories, so we never really created them, so that's another thing we're gonna talk about tomorrow. Just to give you a heads up, Craig.
Did you get my text, I'm gonna be late, I got a problem with the filling, and they called, so they'd be in tomorrow 9:15. I said, oh, okay, so I'll let you guys know, so, hopefully I'll be done, I should be, I mean, too much past that, so.
We'll just get started and
Yeah,
see where we get from there.
I sent you a text, I don't know if you. Did you
I didn't see
let me
it.
know or not? Okay.
Unless one of the kids looked at my text and didn't tell me. They
No, I did it on the way here, actually, texting you, driving, actually, my voice text,
I don't see it.
so. It didn't say. Yeah, so.
My old phone died. I got this other one. I'm not 100% satisfied with how it operates. That could be part of the problem.
What's the new phone?
I don't even know what it's called. Cheap crap.
What's his name and then.
I just redecided it.
Okay, sorry. Okay, I have COVID-19 payout, EMA director, 6,000, COVID-19 payout, health administrative director, 4,000. One-time payout for extra duties during the COVID-19 pandemic for exempt employees for time worked over and above.
I'll make a motion. There we go.
Joe just made a motion, we have a second.
I'll second.
Becky seconded, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Is that all you had right now, Sandy?
I believe that's all I have.
The only comment I would make, the park department, Dubois County Park had their meeting tonight, same time as this one. And, they were gonna go through the plans, and I think they had a joint meeting with 4-H, but, anyway, I just want to make you aware, I reached out to Christine, and she, asked her if she could maybe share those plans with the council, and she said that she would leave it set after tonight's meeting with Bob Ross out there, so anyone that has interest in seeing what they're gonna do, the campgrounds, and, I think they're looking at new signage out there, and trails, naturally. So, you're welcome to stop and talk to Bob about that, or maybe usually around.
I have been in communication with her today. She's saying that the bids could come in over 500,000, and they don't have that much money in that fund.
Yeah.
So I didn't know, she said they got a grant, so I haven't,
I think it's $250,000 grant, but they have to match.
right, see, and that's the stuff I didn't know yet. I told her today I needed to see it, because when she said I need 500,000, I'm like, you don't have that much.
Right. I think she had come and emailed me here, I thought she said they got 430,000. in their account, that's what she.
That's using every dime in that non-reverting
Right, that's
budget.
kind of what she said, so I don't know, they may have to, it's not going out to bid.
Is it coming to Region 15 first and then to us?
I thought so.
I was thinking too.
So I thought, she may have to have, and I can say so to her, she may have to have alternate bids, to pull some of that money out so she can get the basics done. I don't know. It seems like the engineer could kind of guide her that way, that the architect there.
I just told her, I said, we're gonna have to talk, because
But I just want.
you can't sign something you don't have money for, and then I didn't know about the other grant.
Yeah, I don't know, if that's like the airport, what if she has to come up with money first and then get reimbursed, and she's gonna be in a bind.
Which the county has done that before on reimbursable grants, but you gotta make sure you have the money.
Right.
The grant setup and.
Right.
I
So
just
I hadn't seen any of that yet, so I just told her that today. I said, I need to see some of that.
Because usually Becky and I, you attend those meetings, but then there's conflict tonight, so. And then, I guess we kind of talked, did we want to talk about or just basically start thinking about the wage increases for 22. You know, I mean, I think I look back, kind of thought we made the decision in our May meeting, but I guess we can discuss it tonight if we want to. I had on, I think Brooke, was it Brooke? Brooke had sent, I had asked her, you know, what does each percent cost, that's what she made in my spreadsheet.
And that's only the general fund, right?
She did all wages, and then she did just general fund. I think that's what she
Yeah,
did.
she broke it out, the gross wages she's got, and then the gross general wages, but, so each, you know, each percent kind of looks like $129,519. You know, as we stand now, which, you know, that's just a rough number, so $130,000 for each percent of a wage increase. And, you know, we'd have to discuss it, you know, like we have been doing the last few years, is doing it by percentage. I think one of the employees made a comment, they'd rather do it by percentage versus, you know, like everybody gets 25 cents an hour. You know what I'm saying?
It was the other way.
Yeah,
It
he
was
went
said
that
by the hour versus percent.
He was, yeah.
So,
Yeah, when you sent us that, I was like, isn't that what we already do? We do a percentage now. I mean, that we corrected it from years past.
Well,
We used to do it just a flat amount.
The preference was the other way. He wants a flat fee.
He was a flat.
He wants a flat fee.
Absolutely.
Yes, a flat amount, because otherwise you feel like if you're making more, you're getting more. And that's what that's, in my opinion, that's what the percentage is about. We're trying to reward.
Well, I think what's happening is some people are 40 hours, some people are 35, and they're breaking it down by, if you give them a 1%, they think they're getting less because they work more hours. But you're giving them an hourly wage, and if you give them a percent, it's still a
the same
percent.
no matter,
It's still,
no matter how many hours you work.
it's just your job is 40 and mine's 35, there's a difference.
Right, and I mean, I can kind of see what that person is saying, you know, each person gets a certain dollar amount per hour, the same, everybody. But how do you explain that to the person, you know, let's say a prosecutor, an assistant prosecutor who gets paid 75,000, and then, you know, somebody who makes 30,000, you know, is their full-time annual rate? How is that fair to the person who, you know, it's a much larger percentage of this person's salary than it is this person's salary?
And that's what my question was, back to you was, when you guys did the wage study, you based it on hourlies, and that's what set that wage for those positions.
Right, yeah, it was based, it wasn't just some flat random, you know.
So,
And see, that's what I don't know if Scott understood that part of it, or if he was just looking at the annual.
I think it was just overall, that everybody should get the same thing.
well, we got rid of that.
Mhm.
But we don't all work the same, some have to work more hours for what they have,
Right.
because that's their job.
That was almost the whole reason for the wage study and all the other we're doing.
Because it was getting lopsided.
We're going, yeah.
It was getting lopsided.
Yeah, for years and years, that's why everything got so out of order and, you know.
Moving on, I guess, in 2020, you know, I think we gave a 1.5% raise, is what I looked up or figured out. I just looked at inflation, and I just looked at what the US puts out, and the inflation rate in 2019 was 1.8%, and in 2020 it was 1.2%. This is what they publish, okay? So the thing that's tricky here, I have some uneasy feeling about, is in 2021, January, we had 1.4% inflation, February was 1.7, and March was 2.6. So if you take the average of those 3 months, that's 1.9% inflation rate on the first quarter of this year. So, you know, and then I looked, you know, that, and it just, you know, the CPI or the consumer price index for food has gone up 6%, and, you know, gasoline has gone up 8%.
Lumber's going up.
You know, I mean, the stuff that people really need has really gone up, you know, and, so I don't know, I gotta make mixed emotions about it here, or mixed feelings, but, when you take the first 3 months of this year and then you maintain a 2.6% inflation rate, you know, it looks like, to me, it comes up to about 2.43 average for the whole 12 months. So
So if it doesn't go up anymore.
that's it, right. But I don't know, and then when you look at the, you know, I know we were sitting here, a year ago or so, and we were worried about, the COVID, you know, were we gonna be able to get any kind of raise? So I don't know if we wanna think about it and then maybe decide in May what we wanna do and just kind of see what another
Well,
month.
we have to in May because
Cause they have to
June
start.
1st, they gotta start, and some people have boards that they have to talk to in May and June before they can turn anything into us.
And we can decide tonight too.
If I remember correctly, last year, we had said we were gonna give the we thought 1.5 for coming up, thinking that this year, we probably wouldn't be able to give any.
Right,
I mean, that was,
But I think that's before we knew we were gonna get
reimbursed.
our money and,
So it's concerning, and I think it's everybody's concern, you know, if inflation, you know, the government wants to kind of maintain or try to target a 2% inflation rate. I mean, that's what their goal is here. That's why they're holding, you know, the interest rates so low and, you know, get the economy moving. So, I mean, I think, you know, that's an unknown here, you know, and they, you know, what you read is they, you know, some months could be higher, some months could be lower, you know. I mean, but they want to target a 2% rate going forward. I mean, that's what they're trying to do. That, you know, I guess you push the button to print more money. You know what I'm saying?
well,
How do they do it?
yeah.
I've seen them, that's what they do.
Yeah, you know. So I mean, it's a tricky year. I don't remember ever. You know, I mean, back in the 80s, you know, when we had high inflation, but it just seems like we're awash in money with the printing and pushing out. And, you know, they can send out, these checks to everyone and, not be taxable income and, you know, it just seems like we're printing money. So I don't know, it's concerning. But, you know, it's tough to, sit here and, see what the 2022 is gonna do when we can't figure out what next month's gonna do. So,
Chad is gonna have a committee meeting for the ARP money on Thursday morning. And so they're gonna discuss possible plans for what the county can do with our $8 million. My big thing is, I hope we do revenue replacement, which is gonna take a lot of it, but
I mean, in my opinion, that should be number one. That's my opinion.
Speak
so.
So,
And we don't know the growth quotient for how, you know, for next year. We don't have any of that budget stuff yet. We can always put in a, you know, you can always say, let's do 2%, and we can always put it in. We can always cut it when it comes to budget time if we know more in August.
Is that what you're leaning to right now? President, you were saying you were by yourself and the dictator make the decision?
I mean, that's what I was thinking, to match what the, you know, kind of match what the government's targeting. I don't know, that's just my opinion, I think it's tough.
Right now, the average is over that, and it's.
Well, it's not over, I mean, the first 3 months is not over, it's 1.9. 1.9. I mean, on an average of the first quarter here.
This would be the year to do it. Really sweet.
I mean, you don't have to make the decision tonight, you can wait.
But I mean, does anyone else have any, I don't want to, I just want to give my opinion, you know.
Yeah, my gut reaction is that it's gonna get higher, the inflation rate, you know, that I thought, like last year, we were gonna try to stay on the lower side. We approved 1.5 and it ended up indeed being closer to 1.5 than the one that we were originally talking about. it was over what we kind of thought it might be. My gut says to do at least 2.5.
Becky, you wanna make a comment on
I've been between 2 and 3, so, going back and forth there. 2.5, I'm in between 2 and 3 right now, if we can go a little bit higher.
The stuff I read today, I mean, it almost looked like it was gonna get closer to 3 eventually, like before the end of the year. You never know.
Can you explain a little, you know, I'm just saying, that, you know, let's take a 2% raise, that's $260,000. So how does that, the quotient, how would, I mean, let's say we go ahead with that, you know, I'm just using that. How would that, I mean, would we be allowed to
The growth
raise?
quotient is on your tax levy. You're levied this many dollars for the health fund, the general fund, the highway, the local road and street, Cume Bridge, Cume Cap, park, airport, you know, those kind of funds. Anyway, you're levied, not airport, they're their own, but you're levied X dollars.
Okay.
You can only grow your tax base by that growth quotient. So if you get, I'm bad at math in my head, but if you get 100,000, or let's say $1 million is, I think we're closer to 7 or 8 million on our growth levy. You can only grow your levy by that amount. So that's the only new money you can get on your tax rates. So you take your growth quotient plus times your levy, and that's it. That's all you can raise your taxes for the next year.
That's not a guarantee that it's gonna be approved either, right?
Well, that's what that's why they wait till closer to July to give you that growth quotient. So that's your new money, they call it. So anything you do above that, you have to take in by other revenue sources.
How does history line up with that? I mean,
I think last year it was 4.2. It was 3. It's a 6-year look back average. So if you dip, then it brings it down. Many years ago, it was over 5, then it went down to 1, 2, and it's coming back. So it's hard to know. My guess, 3 or 4%, but I don't know that.
okay,
But that's on all your taxes, not just one fund.
sure. Craig, you want to make any comments?
I don't know. I thought about it, but I don't know where I'm at right now. I mean, it's, it's probably gotta be at least 2, I think that's what I know. That has to be, in my opinion, but,
Thanks. Sorry.
I don't know either. I don't think it's gonna stay around 2%. I think it's gonna be higher. I mean, as far as inflation,
Sure.
I don't think it's gonna stick around 2.
Okay.
I don't know.
Alex?
I agree, numbers are gonna go up quite a bit. Kind of toward the upper end of the pre-mentions.
Joe?
Yeah, that's the same, like what Becky said, you know, but now I'm thinking more of the higher end of that, around 3 or something like that, because I think it just seems like it's gonna keep going up,
Now,
you know, from all the information and stuff.
you're talking wages with inflation. Our county costs are gonna do the same thing. They're gonna go up because of that as well.
Right.
I already told you insurance went up.
Everything we do.
So if you took the $13 million county budget last year and inflated it by 2 or 3%, you're talking, I don't know.
And then not, but the thing, that would eat the growth quotient, I mean, at the same rate. We would still have that little bit of leftover.
Now, hopefully, if we get our revenue replacement with this ARP fund, that will help.
And will you be able, yeah, you should be able to identify what was low.
Well, I've told Chad, I've tried to give Chad, I know with our, just our riverboat was 900, almost $1 million. I mean, half of that, 500 something. And then our other revenue losses were, it was close to $1 million just last year, just on stuff that the State Board of Accounts had me look at, like our, road money, gasoline tax money. That was about 450, 490 something in there, and then our riverboat was about 400 and some thousand. So it's close to $1 million just last year on that. And that's not counting anything from the health department, because I have to have concrete, this is what it was, this is what it is, you can prove it, and then the ARP money will replace it. If you don't have that, they can make you pay it back. So I was using things that I knew I had, just spot checking. So that's 1 year. If we have 4 years, hopefully the riverboat money will come back. Hopefully the gasoline tax money will come back. Hopefully, you know.
This is what you have for county general.
See,
She sent us the same.
he's on the same committee.
Yeah, so, total loss for 1 year, 481,980.72, so say 482,000, let's just round up to the nearest.
That's the riverboat money we lost last year alone.
$482,000.
And like this year, it's not gonna be like back where it was because they, you know.
No, because it's still slow.
Right, it's still sluggish.
And I asked Sandy, I said, I think something that's important, and this is my opinion, is I think a couple of years prior too, just to see if we were trending higher, and maybe 2020 was supposed to be even, you know, I don't know, 3% higher than what it was, just because, I don't know, I think that's important.
When when the state first put out the memo, I tried to go through it and quickly jot what I could do, and then I at least got those numbers. Hopefully things are coming back, but riverboat, we're still not seeing a big surge back yet. And that's all property tax relief, that's general, that goes straight to the general fund.
So the 8-point-something million, did that come to just Du Bois County government, or is
Yes.
that to make?
8.2 is coming just to county government, just to Du Bois County government. We get half of it in a month or so here, and then we get the other half next year. But it's to be used over a 4-year spread.
Okay, gotcha.
So revenue losses are all based on 2019. So what you got in 19, then you look at your differences, and that's what you can replace over the next 4 years. Well, obviously, we don't know what's gonna happen in 23 yet.
Right.
So we gotta hold some of that money in 23 to know what we're gonna replace.
Right, exactly. And do they allow you an increase, you know what I mean, over those years, you know, like, let's say it kind of sort of came back, or do they want you to just have a flat line for 4 years?
From what I had was just, here's what we had, here's what, that's the difference.
Okay.
That's what the guidance I've gotten so far.
Okay, I didn't know if they allowed.
But I just picked funds that I knew, this is what we had, this is what we wasn't. Health department, there's no way of knowing what did we really lose. We don't know how many shots they didn't give.
Right.
So that's a little harder to come up with.
But you can use the 2019 number and say, this is the number of shots they gave.
This is what the shots they gave, this is what they gave, here's the difference.
Right.
Which they hardly gave any last year.
So you can use that.
Right, but it's just,
I mean, to me, it seems like a few people are, you know, not certain what they want to do here. I mean, our meeting is on the 24th. I mean, do you feel that's too late to make a call on it?
we send out things June 1st, so.
So let's wait till June, I mean, to the May 24th meeting. And everybody think about it a little more. And, you know, we can track it, we'll have another month behind us, as far as the national inflation rate. You know, maybe we can make a better decision if that's okay with everyone, or?
We're in agreement?
Yes.
The only other thing I forgot to mention was with the jail, we may need to do an additional appropriation for a dissemination agent to do continuous disclosure of our bonds for the next 20 years. And Baker Tilly was telling me that that is something that's required throughout the whole bond thing. They can do the service, and it's about $2,000 to $3,000 per year. So that's just something you might want to think about.
And that's gotta be paid, because it's indicated that may have to be paid out of the general fund instead of.
I asked Matt when we were on the call about it, and I said, is that something CNR tax does? And he wasn't 100% sure that it was allowed by the CNR tax, and he said for such a small amount, you'd rather not use it in the event they say no, and then you have to pay it back. So that's just something you guys want, and I think it's something either that we put in either the commissioners or my budget, that every year it gets taken care of, because it's a disclosure that we're required to do.
I was like, can you make sure and write that in this budget, budget book?
Right.
Because
Yes,
if something happens, and the way I understand it, if something happens, like we take on another bond issue or something.
We have some kind of big issue that comes up, or the rates change on the bonds, which I don't know how to look at bond rates every,
And you
I
have
do
to-
my APS.
And you have to report it within 10 days.
yeah,
Yes.
and they do, they take care of it.
Oh, yeah.
So that's just something that either I'm gonna come up with an additional if they don't do it for this year, if they don't put us off for a year, or we're gonna put it in the budget for next year.
Seems like you would approve your budget, and if you draw attention, I don't.
I think it's,
Well, I just know it's something that I'm not qualified to go out and do.
Right. And I don't think we can oversell. So this, the next thing I have is this district meeting, I think you signed everyone.
I did sign,
I can't be there.
And then.
I don't think I put you down.
I couldn't be there,
Yeah.
can't either.
Yeah, I don't think there's signed you.
May 12th.
It's May 12th, and it starts,
I'll leave the door open.
doors open at 5:30.
Program starts at 6.
Let's say it's close to 6, so. And then the next meeting is May 24th at 4:30, so. I don't know, thanks. I don't know, I guess if there's anyone else got any.
We may have to start thinking about, well, we're gonna have to set our budget dates for, we have August 9th, and then we don't have anything for September. In October, we're gonna have to have a public hearing, and then 10 days later, we're gonna have to have, at least 10 days later, the actual budget adoption. So we need to set those kind of dates coming up. We don't have to do it tonight yet, but it's something we're gonna have to do.
Okay.
And I didn't bring dates.
There were 2 meetings, one in September, one in October.
There's 2 in October because your public hearing and then your budget adoption. And there's 1 in September. And the public hearing, we usually have later in the evening, and it doesn't take long.
So we'll set those next month. Yeah, I don't have anything else.
I move we adjourn the meeting.
Doug seconded, so all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
I don't wanna spend the night here. Shoot. Straight fed. No, it's still not done. Not done. You can close the blinds.